Hi, creepies. I am ReAnimateHer.
I know, it just sounds like a porno all of a sudden. Some zombies start stripping their clothes off and shit.
Cat dead. Details later.
We got our ball cleavage back, ladies.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. They're coming for you, Barbara.
Do you want a game and get your jollies off as well? This is Coffee Chat of Horrors. Good morning, and here is our friend Todd Farmer. Are you guys able to hear myself and Todd easily, or do you need it louder? You're okay with zombie porn? Yeah, who isn't okay with zombie porn? Can you hear Todd? Okay, hold on, let me switch. They're saying they can't hear you. Okay, hold. Can you
Here,
talk
let me say words. Can anyone hear me now? Testing. I'm test talking. No Todd.
You can't hear him.
Can't hear him.
No, they hear you now. It may be Twitch.
Oh, they hear me.
Twitch has a really, I don't know if you've ever been on the platform Twitch before, but it can be a real...
Yeah. It's twitchy.
Yes. It could have been, who knows, I everything's set up and worked fine. I was able to hear you on my end. All good now?
All good now.
Perfect. So Todd is here. He also has the chat up, but I will be copying and pasting any questions that you guys may have for Todd. And again, if you do have a question, try to make it colorized or highlight it for me so it doesn't get lost in all the chatter that is there. And if you would like to ask the question and you want to color it, it's /me, and then you do your whole thing. So /me, hi, and you can see that color. It should be purple in color, but thank you, Nuclear, for the host. Todd, introduce yourself. Let us know more about you.
Hi, my name is Todd Farmer. I'm a gardener since the pandemic. I have some tomatoes and some potatoes and lots of lovely vegetables in the front and back garden. So it's good to be here.
We are so happy to have you here. Now, I was telling them earlier in the week that you wrote Jason X. Now, were you full writer on the Jason X project, or did you have a co-writer?
I was alone for the first 40 drafts. Then during production, they brought in a guy, and can't remember his name. I found out about it after the fact. He came in, did a rewrite, and then Jimmy, the director, brought me back in to undo the rewrite. And so it's basically still me.
Yeah, I would say. I was watching the Jason X last night. Again, I can't even tell you how many times I've watched that movie. And then I watched the director's cut or the extras and behind the scenes there. And you were discussing how you would have liked to see Jason in the snow.
Oh yeah, that was Jimmy's idea, and it was all we ever had was the setting. We never really had we never had a story. But I just think visually that would have been so much fun.
It would visually.
Yeah, it would have been The Shining, but with Jason, and that would have been cool. I'm moving you to this screen so I can see you better.
Oh, no worries. I agree with you on that with Jason in the Snow. Not that long ago, Vincent DeSanti of Womstomp Films created Never Hike Alone, which is an indie fan-made film for Friday the 13th. And he recently made Never Hike in the Snow, which is an awesome opening scene. There's snow on the ground. There's an epic murder involved, and it involves Jason, and the blood that goes off of the snow. It's just like, wow, very vibrant. I think it would have been an amazing thing to have Jason in the snow.
Yeah, that would have been the blood trails and everything else. That would have been lovely.
Right? And you could, I don't know if you've seen any of the fan-made Friday the 13th films.
I have. I've seen, over the years, I've been sent many.
Nice. Yeah. Womp Stomps, it's actually very well made. And there's another one that Vincent DeSanti and James Sweet are creating together. Is called Jason Rising, But when I was watching the director's behind the scenes yesterday, as I was doing some gardening myself, and when you said the snow scene, that automatically popped into my head. If you've ever seen Never Hike in the Snow, it's a really short fan film, but yeah, blood in the snow, the blood trail of the body being dragged, it looked really good.
It sounds familiar. I probably have seen it.
Oh, Lament Butterfly has a question. She wants to know who was responsible for Adrian's line, "How does he function with a brain that small?"
That would be me, most likely.
Nice. My favorite quote from there is the engineer guy. His name Crutch. I can't remember his name. Crutch.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite quote is after Jason started killing, he goes into, I guess, the cockpit or whatever, and he sees like a bloody mess, and he says, "Hey, you were lucky you weren't alive during the Microsoft conflict." I'm friggin' rolling on that one.
It still makes me laugh because that was at a time when we were all fighting over what was better, PC or Mac.
Yeah.
It seemed like the right thing to do.
Oh, that's a great line. And with everything that's been going on since Jason X has been made with Microsoft, all the stuff that goes on with Bill Gates too, I was laughing at that one. I'm like, oh, we're just wait and see. That was definitely a good one. That was one. And I had a question on set there. There was this in the cockpit in two parts of the scene. One where the rescue ship was coming in. There's a sticker or a picture of some sort on like the wheel, the driving wheel. And it was in the cockpit where the guy with the cowboy hat, he died. I can't remember his name. It was a picture
Fat
there.
Lou. Fat Lou, who was thin. I don't know when that. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. I was trying to find information on it online. I couldn't find anything.
Still of it online. I could find out, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I was on. Okay.
And go ahead. What you were going to say?
I was there. The first day of shooting was actually Azrael and I in the VR thing. Mm-hmm. And so after I probably left 4 days later into the shoot, and then I didn't come back for a couple of weeks. I came back to do some rewrites, and they locked me in a hotel room. So I was never really on set after my first 2 or 3 days of shooting. So I never saw any of that stuff up close. Oh,
okay. Yeah, I don't know how any of that stuff works. I've never been behind the scenes on a Hollywood set. So I didn't know if you guys were there every day. Is it, they film this one section and you guys get that done, and then the other group of actors come in and you get that done?
Well, I mean, the actual first shot of the movie is me coming through some colorful grid with a super soaker that we made look like a laser gun. But it would shoot a lot of water at you if you needed it to, just as a warning.
Right.
But that was the first day of shooting. So, I mean, everything was out of order. And then I think I left 3 or 4 days later.
Oh, wow.
And then came back a couple weeks.
Yeah. Oh, I would never tell that was a super soaker that you guys were using.
It was.
It's awesome.
Only quality.
Right? It's great to see some of the practical effects behind the scene and trying to keep budgets low, right? So trying and having to do something in outer space, I know that probably wasn't going to be cheap.
No, I think we were around 10 million was the budget. I don't know for certain, but I believe that's what I'd heard.
Wow, that's still a lot of money.
It is a lot of money for a movie that was number 10 in the franchise.
Yeah. Let me copy this question here from Monkey, but I do have one from Regal. She wants to know.
I saw that.
Yeah, she wants to know which film was more fun to be a part of, Jason X or My Bloody Valentine, and what was your favorite experience from both?
I mean, it's hard to choose. Jason X was my first, so I mean, you can never really beat your first. But I got to be naked in My Bloody Valentine, so you really can't beat being naked either. So,
yes.
Bloody Valentine I was close with Jimmy as well, but Bloody Valentine felt like I was a lot more a part of everything. And then Patrick Lucy and I had become, after that, we became partners. So, I mean, that was So I mean, we were really close. We were finishing each other's sentences and all that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's hard to say which one was better, but certainly they were both fun in their own unique way.
Yeah. Well, I would gather. And I mean, yes, you can't forget your first, right? And it was such an iconic killer, Jason. Like, it's Jason. He's known worldwide. I'm sure aliens even know about him.
Yeah.
Now, with Monkey has, I'm a huge fan of Lexa, and was just wondering if you got to meet her, and if so, what was she like to work with?
She was great. She's still great. I mean, I still chat with her on occasion, and she was lovely on set. She was lovely. I mean, there was, it's a movie production always has a gazillion dramas going on at the same time, and she was always just so calm and so smooth, and so I mean, she was a dream to work with, and she was a perfect casting too. The way she pulled the scene off, the way she acted the scene, she was great.
That's awesome. And Reaper goes back to our PC or Mac. And are you a gamer?
I'm not the gamer that I used to be. I mean, Jason X, a lot of the characters in Jason X were from EverQuest, because I played EverQuest all the time back then.
Yeah.
And then I've played, I mean, Dean Lorey, who wrote Jason Goes to Hell, and a bunch of other writers used to come over to the house, and we would network all of my old PCs so that we could play Quake 2 together and kill each other. And so, yeah, a huge gamer. And then in the more recent, like in the last 3 or 4 years, I haven't played as much just because I've been so busy. And then with the, when the pandemic hit and there was nothing to do, I went out and worked in the garden the whole time. Remodeled the house, got a lot done.
Nice.
Good times. And I saw the question, PC or Mac. The current answer is, who asked that, Reaper? The current answer is Mac at the moment.
Nice.
Lots of Macs here.
Lots of Macs. Right on.
Lots of Macs.
I'm not a Mac person. I have a PC, but when I was doing learning graphic design in college, they had us use Macs over PC.
So you've done both.
Yep. I like them both. I can't tell you now, but I've updated Mac because I have been out of the game for years. Reaper approves of Quake. Let me just hold on, more freak. I'm grabbing that for you.
Well, I may not be current. No, I'm not.
Now, Ice really enjoyed The Messengers. He says that I like one of his first movies, The Messengers. I enjoyed The Messengers as well. What gave you the inspiration for The Messengers?
I was broke, and I called my agent, and I said, "Are there any jobs?" And my agent said, "Well, there's this one thing. Everybody's gone in and pitched it. They just didn't go forward. I guess I could send you in on that." And I was like, "Well, if everybody's gone in and pitched it, why didn't I get to go in and pitch it?" Well, anyway, I went in. I met with the guys, and what they wanted to do was The Shining on a farm. And I said, and so I was like, well, yeah, I could totally do that. I'm a farmer, and I like The Shining. Actually, love The Shining. So on the drive home, I came up with a concept, and I called my agent and said, set up a meeting. So I think the next day I was in there, and I pitched a whole bunch of people. Todd Garner, who just did Mortal Kombat, was there. I mean, there was a bunch of people there, and I got the job in that meeting. Now, the movie that you like is not my movie. It's not anywhere near my movie. It's still on a farm, and the names are the same. There's some corn. I wrote some corn. There's some crows. I wrote some crows. But there were no ghosts. And what I pitched was the horror version of A Beautiful Mind. So basically, you had a farmer. He's about to lose the farm with the bank, and crows are eating his corn, and his wife is likely having an affair. And then this old dude shows up in this old pickup truck, and he sort of like fades in on the horizon, like Eastwood from High Plains Drifter. And he comes, and he's got a bed full of crap in his truck, and he says, "What you need is a scarecrow." And he pulls out this old thing that looks like a corpse. And the guy is like, my field's too big. A scarecrow's not going to do me any good. He's like, no, you put this scarecrow out there. It'll do you some good. And so he puts the scarecrow out, and the next morning, all the crows are dead. And then very shortly after that, and there goes part of my hearing device, Very shortly after that, the guy who's possibly wooing his wife dies mysteriously, and the banker who's going to take the farm dies mysteriously. And so at the end of the movie, he realizes that his scarecrow is killing everything, and so he goes to this old voodoo gypsy woman, and she says, "Here's what you got to make. You make this, and you pour it over the scarecrow, and you catch it on fire." So he's out in his barn. He's making this concoction that looks like mud and goo and everything. And his daughter comes out, and she's like, "Dad, what are you doing? Go in and make things right with Mom," because he's been fighting with his wife the whole time. And so they get in a big argument, and then his wife comes out. And she's like, "Who are you arguing with? Who are you yelling at?" And he's like, "I'm yelling at Jessica. Would you just leave me alone?" And she's like, "Sweetie, Jessica's been dead for 2 years." And so we realize that he's been completely insane. He's killed everybody, and then he tries to kill his wife at the end.
Oh,
we didn't make that.
That one sounds awesome, though.
But we didn't make that. So, but I'm glad you liked their messengers. I liked it too. We got the sparkly vampire girl before she was sparkly.
Right. And I can't stand sparkly vampires. But your version sounds really cool. Would there ever be a way to create that?
Odd that you mentioned that. A few years later, a guy, an executive named J.R. Young, reached out to me, and he said, "Hey," and he worked for Sam Raimi. He worked for Ghost House, and he said, "I just read your first draft. It's really good. And we think we could make that as the prequel." And I was like, "What?" And so we were going to take that first original draft, which led to the Messengers, and we were going to make a prequel. And then Raimi came in, and Raimi was like, because the trick in that script was there actually wasn't a scarecrow walking around killing people. It was all in this guy's head.
Right.
And Raimi came in and said, "I love that, but I want to do a killer scarecrow movie." So we made the scarecrow real and changed everything around. So one script written, 2 movies made.
Wow.
I think that's rare.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Lament, same here. We would both love to see your version of The Messengers, because that sounds really cool. It's not only is it a psychological horror, but also a visual horror as well. Not knowing that you're actually insane and you're going around and doing these killings, thinking that it's some other entity going around doing this stuff.
It would have been fun.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, it would have been fun. But this is also why I really enjoy fan-made films, because they can take it that next step. And I mean, unfortunately, fan-made films don't have the budget that, big films have. They don't have the studios behind them. So it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and raising funds from fans. And that's why I really love fan-made films, because they can take that and go that extra distance and not have to worry about it being rewritten or taken out because the studios don't like it or whatever going on.
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go. Lament Butterfly has a question. She also says, "Can you please thank Mr. Farmer for having the Grendel destroy the space station, making it impossible for any other slasher to catch up with his kill count? Unfortunately, it's catching up Michaelin's." And did he name the Grendel? And if so, was it a reference to Beowulf and the connection between Grendel, his mother, and Jason and Pamela?
Yes. Yes, that is exactly what that was for. And there's also Beowulf, the little shuttle that I believe the shuttle was Beowulf. And that was all in reference to Michael and his mama, or Jason and his mama. Mm-hmm. Could be to Michael and his mama too.
Yeah, right. Now I had a little of a discussion with Todd off stream about Jason X and Earth 2. Because if you remember in Jason X, there is Earth 2, right? Because Earth 1 died, the water, everything was not sustainable. So I was asking Todd if there was, if this lawsuit ever ends between Cunningham and Miller, if it would be possible to even bring back Earth 2, Jason on Earth 2.
It's possible. And if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, it's not possible 10 years ago. The reason I say that changes is because Jason X did not do well at the box office. It did horribly. But The Thing did horrible, and Big Trouble in Little China did horrible. And so a lot of these movies that tanked at the box office, they found new life in DVD. They found new life in streaming. And so there is a fan base. And even though Jason is both loved and hated, it seems like people are softening to it a little bit over the years. And so, I think it's possible. It would I mean, I think it would be fun because I heard that Kevin Williamson had done this with Scream. Later, I heard he really didn't, which is he had 3 ideas when he wrote the first one. He didn't. But he realized that was a great marketing pitch to say later
Right.
so he could get more movies. And so when he said that, we were in Toronto at the time shooting, and I started playing around with ideas for the sequel and the one after that. And I if anybody got the new Scream package, at the end of the commentary, I went through the whole pitch of that experience and what it would have been for part 2 and part 3. And so I won't bore you with it now. But it would have been fun, I think.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I'm a huge fan of the Friday franchise, and it's been years since we've had a good Friday the 13th. And with Michael here catching up on kill counts, I don't like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a Halloween fan. I like Michael Myers and all, but Jason is like the end. He's king of slashers for me. And he holds the highest body count at this point in time. But now there's 2 new movies coming out with Michael. And I'm afraid that Michael is going to bypass that body count. So, Cunningham and Miller need to get their shit together.
I mean, I want to think, and who was it that asked the question about Grendel earlier? That was destroying Grendel?
Lament Butterfly.
Lament, yes, Lament. Hi, Lament. I think we can always make the argument that there were probably 300,000 people on that.
Yes, easily.
So they got to do some massive damage to catch up. But I don't know. There may be other people who say, yeah, that doesn't really count.
And that you're gonna have, because they did explode that. What was the base's name? Solaris. They totally trashed Solaris, right? The Grendel flies right through Solaris and obliterates it. So how many people are in Solaris, right?
That's right. We were talking about, I was saying Grendel and I meant Solaris. You're correct. And Solaris was named after the paladin character who Dean Lorey played in EverQuest. And Dean Lorey wrote Jason Goes to Hell. So see, there's a rhyme to all of the madness.
Oh yeah, there is.
Yeah, Solaris probably had 300,000. If not more, but I would think 200-300.
Right? You would think that they would have. It was an entire little city on its own, so they have to have an employee for everything. Of course, Michael ain't gonna beat it. But then you're gonna have those fans that are gonna be like, "Well, that doesn't count. We didn't see the kills." Like, yeah, you did. They exploded. It would have been cool.
Let them say that. That's fine.
They can say it.
Bless their hearts.
I always say the sun's got to shine on a dog's ass every once in a while, right? So.
Absolutely. Look, those little fuckers need their place anyway. It's okay.
Yeah, I agree. That's so funny. Horror Freak 2780 has a question. Apart from Jason X being a favorite of mine, how easy or hard was it to film the liquid nitrogen scene?
I wish I had been there. I wasn't. And Noel Cunningham, who was Sean Cunningham's son and likely still is, called me up. I don't remember where I was, but he called me up and he said, I have an idea. Jason gets this girl and freezes her in liquid nitrogen. And that's all he had. And I was like, that's great. And so that became that scene. And so it's funny because you write that. And I get a lot of credit for people come back and say, oh, that was the greatest kill. You wrote Well, I wrote it, but that was a special effects team. That really wasn't me. If you'd had a crappy special effects team, they wouldn't have been able to pull that off. Right. And so the way they did that, the way they pulled that off, made it classic. It wasn't me. It wasn't Noel. It was the effects team. Because, again, if it hadn't been a good effect, we wouldn't be talking about this today. No. They just knocked it out of the park.
That was definitely one of the greatest kills on there. I enjoy the bone breaking in the film, like listening to that, because you're just like, oh my God, you can just visualize, because we all know what it is like to either break a bone or hear something snap in our own bodies, to hear someone's back being broken or neck being broken. But I do like the great scene where she's at the end, she's holding on, and they're trying to save her, but the hull is already, all that wind is being sucked out through the ship, and she is on the grate, and then she gets sucked through that. That's got to be, to me, that was a good kill. What is your favorite kill in Jason X?
In Jason X, I don't know that I have a favorite. I mean, certainly the cryo frozen face was certainly hard to beat. When I saw that, I was just like, oh, because I mean, it had been written, but I never imagined it would look that good.
Yeah.
But also, the screwed thing happened because Scream had come out. And Scream was very self-referential. Scream knew what it was. And so we had to be a little more jokey. And so I fought with it for a long time, but then I was like, all right, screw it. So I'll play along. So the screwed line, he's screwed. But
Right.
the gag came out of just one of the guys who'd drawn, a lot of sketches were drawn as we prepped for the movie, and somebody had drawn this big vehicle with this big screw on top of it. And we were like, yeah, we gotta use that. And so that's where that came from. But that's a good kill.
Yeah.
But I like all of them. I like them all. I like Azrael, the guy that's in my scene.
Yes.
Jason breaks his back and then throws him to the ground. And it doesn't seem like a big thing, but the effects, that was played by a stunt woman.
Yes.
And he throws her to the ground. And I mean, she just hits a concrete floor. I don't know how she did that.
I don't know how she did it either.
That had to hurt like crazy. And she just slams right into it. So, I mean, that's also a favorite kill just because of her.
Yeah, no, that's a good kill. And yeah, you see her when her body goes up, and I didn't even know it was a female until after the fact. I watched all of the extended stuff. I always watch all of that stuff. And her body goes up, and then she slams down, not even a head lift up or anything. She just boom, like dead hit. And I was like, ouch.
And I have told the story before, but the guy who played Kane wouldn't let me do the head smash into the wall.
Right.
Because as crazy as Kane is, and the whole, he's got kill tattooed to his lip and all that.
Very professional.
When it comes to being a stuntman, he's very professional. And he's like, no, you could get hurt. And I was like, I'm not going to get hurt. And so he brings in this big guy, and you would remember the big guy because as we were starting production, X-Men had just wrapped production. And so there was a big stuntman who fought Wolverine in the cage at the beginning of X-Men. So that guy comes in to play me, or play my stuntman. And so it's that guy that Kane is shoving against the wall. And there was a hole cut out in the wall, and then it was covered in this black fabric. And Kane's not pushing. So his hand, because I did a close-up later, his hand is right there, but I'm the one doing all the action. Same thing with a stuntman. They're struggling, and he comes up to the wall, and the stuntman just slams his head into the wall and missed the hole and just shattered his nose. So of all the things that happened in the movie, that was the bloodiest. Not the getting cut in half and falling on the screw. It was the stuntman turning around, and it was just nothing but mutilated nose and blood everywhere. And I remember going up to Kane after going, thanks, buddy. Thank you. I will never doubt you again.
Well, yeah, he's a stuntman that's how he got into it, stuntman by trade. Yeah. And so he knows the dangers. I mean, who doesn't want to get their face smashed in by Jason? I mean, I would, but yeah, there's that potential of breaking a face.
Right. We should have filmed that.
And I've met Kane a few times. He's an amazing person. He's so kind. Yeah, he is. He's a great guy. Ice wants to know, what would you do differently with any of your movies now if you had the chance to go back? And I mean, I know there's always things after you watch it, you're like, oh shit, we should have done that, or oh no, we could have done that, or we shouldn't have done that. What is there anything in any of your films that you would?
I mean, certainly there's a lot of little things. I mean, I wouldn't pull the guns out of E.T., but I would. Like you mentioned Janessa's death earlier. She hits a hole in the ship, in the hull of the ship, and was supposed to get sucked out, and we just didn't have the time or the money to do it. Right. So I think they threw some roast beef at it or something.
Yeah,
I would love to see that done. Visual, like with practical effects. I'd love to see that. I don't know how you do it. You take something that blows really hard and you blow a whole bunch of meat through it.
Yeah,
but
that little
stuff like that. Concept wise, I don't think I would have changed anything. I mean, Jason X was originally a little bit bigger in budget. Like we had, when they found Jason frozen, there were these countermeasures that kicked in, which is these little robotic spiders with lasers and shit. That would have been visually fun to see. And there was a whole anti-gravity sequence with Jason floating with, you know, a machete and everybody else floating around him and him hacking as he can. That would have been fun, but we couldn't afford to do that. And I mean, we're not going to put the crew in the vomit comet and have Jason floating around in an arch over the world, but because we couldn't afford that. But little stuff like that. Drive Angry, the effects were a little crappy at times, but story-wise, I still love the story.
Oh, it was a good story.
Same thing with Bloody Valentine. I mean, we had a blast. You know, I feel like it was a good movie.
I liked My Bloody Valentine. I mean, I love the original, but when you guys came out with My Bloody Valentine, it was 3D. I believe that was the name of it. I enjoyed it as well. I love Jensen Ackles to boot. So,
well, come on, he's dreamy.
He is,
and it's fun. I'm 6'2", and so you think when you watch Supernatural that Jensen's a little guy. Yeah, he's 6'4". He's bigger. He's way bigger than I am.
What?
And he's huge. And
really,
I'm pretty sure he's 6'4". If he's not, he's 6'2". I think he's bigger than me. But but it's because Jared it's a freaking Sasquatch. But it's funny, when I got to set, you know, I was literally off in the corner all by myself in the shadows, and we were shooting the scene with Betsy and I are approaching it. I think what we were shooting was the scene where Jensen pulls up and the dog comes out. Mm-hmm. And so I had just shown up on set, and I was sitting off to the side, and I hadn't been there 5 minutes, and he found me on his own, came up and found me and shook my hand. And I mean, that doesn't really happen. It doesn't happen often. It certainly doesn't happen by number one on the call sheet. Bill Fichtner did it. Amber Heard did it, but it doesn't often happen. Right. And this is why I still text and am in love with Bill Fichtner and Jensen Ackles.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see him in The Boys, by the way.
Oh, me neither.
Great.
I just started watching Supernatural not too long ago, and no, that's where I fell in love with him. But every time experience. Every time I see Sam, it's Jared is his real name, right? Sam, he's super tall, and I compared Jensen and him together side by side, and I'm like, he's got to be a tall motherfucker. And you're telling me that Jensen, he's a pretty tall guy himself.
I think he is. Am I wrong about that? Did chat correct me? I didn't look.
I don't know. Guys, do we know if how tall Jensen Ackles? I don't even know if I'm saying his last name right, but he's gorgeous.
I think it's Ackles.
Ackles.
He is 6'1", so okay, I said wrong. He's an inch shorter than me, but he's big. 6'1" is not small. And it's Jared that's 6'4". But together, you think that, and then Derek Mears.
Yeah, he's 2009 Jason.
Is 6'5".
Yeah, he's tall.
And so that's why Jared and Derek look so cool on the screen together. And then, of course, our other buddy Tyler Main is 6'8".
Yes.
So he is the true Sasquatch of our little party.
I would definitely say so.
When we were planning on doing Halloween 3D, I already knew Tyler's wife, because we'd done this Jesus comic book ages ago. This comic book about Revelations. I know, how crazy is that? And so I met her at a Comic-Con, and we got to talking. And the plan was always to bring Jensen. I've lost you. Where there you are. The plan was to bring Tyler and Scout back for our version. And so she called. She knew I was in town, and she said, "Hey, why don't you come by the house?" Which is about 6 hours north of LA at the time. And so I stopped at Tyler's house just to meet him, because I'd never met him before. Mm-hmm. He ended up breaking out the whiskey, and there was some vodka there, so I probably took part. And next thing I know, it's 2:00 in the morning, and we're walking to Derek's house, because Derek lived a few blocks away, and we're toilet papered the crap out of Derek's house. And then Tyler, because he's a genius, took pictures of the toilet papered house and texted them to Derek. So the next thing we know, Derek is showing up. And we've been best buddies ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. Toilet papered house. Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah, and at 6'2", I'm the tiny person in that group. So
Yeah.
okay.
Wow. At 6'2". Yeah, that's a lot of tall people.
Yes.
Mama Ducky had a question. What was it like working with a badass robot lady from Jason X?
Lisa was lovely. And I always thought it was funny that when they went off to do their TV show, they swapped sides. But she was wonderful, and I always felt bad for her because Matrix had just come out,
Yeah.
and so we were competing against we were competing against, you could freeze frame this girl and then move the camera around her, and we couldn't do that, and and they had tons and tons of martial arts training. We couldn't afford to give Lisa any of that. So she was always worried, with Matrix just coming out, I want to do all this badass stuff so I don't look stupid. And I feel for her, but I thought she looked great. And I thought she did great with what we had because we had nothing.
I thought she was badass.
She was badass, and she was so much fun. And she and Kane had a great rapport together. And I know there was one point where she knocks Kane down, and they were setting up the cameras to see Kane get up, and Kane was like, "No, we're not doing that." And everybody was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "You don't see Jason get up. It's too awkward. You don't see it."
Yeah.
And we were all like, "Okay, we don't see Jason get up." And that's the way it went. He was very protective. So I segued into something else. Sorry about that. But yes,
Oh, no.
Lisa was lovely to work with.
Oh, no, I liked her. I thought she was a badass character in Jason X, and I was hoping that we would see her in the Friday the 13th video game, which I am in love with so much. But then the lawsuit happened, and we didn't get the Grendel, we didn't get Jason X, we didn't get anything, and I was hoping to see her in the game, but again, we didn't get that because of the lawsuit. But no, I thought she was a kick-ass character. She was badass.
Yeah. They actually did a lot of designs for that because I know somebody sent me stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
It would have been fun to see all that.
It definitely would have been fun to see. Then the lawsuit and everything that went on, that kind of killed everything. There is the Grendel is out there, but it's not a part of the actual game. So you will see the Grendel and Uber Jason and all that stuff over on YouTube. It's just not a part of the actual game for us, those that bought it.
And it's not like a plug-in that you can play?
No.
I mean, I have the game. I don't play it because anytime I log on to Xbox, anybody that knows me, they're like, "Oh, we'd love to kill you." And I'm like, I can't. There's too many guys that are too good at it. I can't play that game. I'd just be dying the whole time.
Oh, I love playing the game. Me and a few of my friends, we teach people how to play Friday the 13th. Even though the game is not having any more stuff to it, it's still an amazing game. I play it every Friday. And my buddy, A Serial Killer, also plays it Friday nights. And yeah, we team up and we teach people how to play. And so they get the ability. If you are more than welcome to join us at any given time, we will show you how to play. I'm level 150. He's level 150. We both backed the game. So we've been playing it since it came out.
Oh, wow.
Love
crazy.
Friday the 13th. It's my favorite game, even though there's no more updates or anything to it.
Yeah.
But we have new people come into the game, and that's what we do is we teach them how to play. We teach them how to play as Jason, and we teach them how to play as a survivor. Because there is strategy in that game. It's not just run around and slice and dice. There is strategy in that game for both sides.
Derek and I did a Twitch stream ages ago. I forget who we did it for, but we went in and played, and it was just horrible. Everybody was like, "You're dead, Farmer. And Jason X sucks."
Of course they say that.
And then Derek was like, I can't believe I can't play Jason.
Yeah. Jason, it does take practice. He's not everyone thinks he's easy to play. And once they get into the game and they realize he's not, he is somewhat easy, but if you want to get those epic kills, those environmental kills as well, there's a strategy on how to play Jason, right? Yeah. And that takes time and great practice. When I started playing, I played only as Jason to understand Jason. And then I went to Survivor and played only as Survivor to get the understanding of how a survivor would play. So you get that mentality of the killer as a survivor, and then you're the killer, you get to that mentality as a survivor, so you know what the survivor is going to do, so you can kind of visually see what they're going to do and get them before they do it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's
and
a
that's
great
dedication
game.
too. Level 150.
Yeah.
You don't get that overnight.
No, you don't. I played the hell out of that game.
That's awesome.
Lament Butterfly has a question. She says, Mr. Farmer read the novelization of Jason X and its sequels, and did. If so, what did you think of them?
I didn't read them. I don't know why. I think I have a couple of them. I mean, I think it's one of those things where, you know, it's when you work on a movie that long, and we worked on it a lot, and I did draft after draft of the thing. You know, after a while, you just let others do their thing with it, and I'll stand over here. But I think I have a couple of the books, but I haven't read any of them. I hope they're good.
Yeah, well, Lament, she does a lot of thesis and research, and she's a really huge Friday the 13th fan, and she has a whole hypothesis on Jason. She goes into it on our YouTube channel as well, and yeah. I love listening to the research and her thesis on Jason Voorhees and the whole franchise. So
oh wow!
Yeah, oh yeah.
That sounds very interesting.
Oh, it is very interesting. Going back to the whole, you know, the movies that failed that are receiving sequels to, like you said, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. Reaper 1923 says a classic example of that is Blade Runner. Blade Runner failed on every release, and but became a top sci-fi film, and especially voted by fans from around the world. So I can't see why Jason X couldn't do the same thing, especially with the sequels.
I mean, the original idea that I had for Jason X, and not the original idea, one of the early ideas, the one that we were going to move forward with, was Blade Runner, because Freddy versus Jason was in development and had been in development forever. And I mean, I did a crappy draft of it back in the day, but Sean was frustrated, wanted to do another Jason movie, and so we kicked around ideas, and the one I suggested was that we move Jason into the future so that we don't screw with what Freddy versus Jason is doing, because we didn't know what they were doing. And so I suggested Blade Runner. Let's move it into the future. They find him cryogenically frozen, and then he's in this new fish out of water world where technology is crazy, and yet here he is, old school with a machete. And everybody loved it, but the problem was, as we started talking about it, they were like, we can't afford that. We can't afford the set design of that. We can't do the production design on it. So we moved away from it. And then I suggested, well, let's do Alien, because Alien's just a dark warehouse where they said it. Hey, this is a ship, and so we could do that, and that's how it came. But yeah, Blade Runner was a huge influence, and again, a movie that did not do well.
Right?
Did horrible.
Yeah. But I noticed a lot of the films that do horrible have huge cult following. Cult following. I know there was people that got up and walked out in the first Friday the 13th, and the same thing happened in Halloween. You had people that got up and walked out because it was either grotesque for them or they just couldn't handle it. And they didn't do the hell of greatest either. And their budget was only $300,000 for Halloween, and I think Friday the 13th was around that, $300,000 to $500,000. No, I thought it was, and I really enjoyed Jason X. There was a question I had in the scene, the beginning of the scene where you see David Cronenberg. I love that man. He is the godfather of body horror. Did you get to work with him?
No, no, I wasn't. I had already left. In fact, I wasn't on that set. No, that's not true. I saw that set in the early days where they were going to shoot that scene. But no, I wasn't there. But I got a message from Jimmy, who was the director, and Jimmy sent me a message, said, "By the way, Cronenberg's rewriting all your lines." But Jimmy put it in a way. It was like he was very timid. I think he actually called me. He was like, "I just want you to know, Cronenberg's rewriting a lot of your lines," and I was like, "That's great." I mean, why would you not want Cronenberg to rewrite your lines like that? There's a whole sequence where Cronenberg says, "I don't want him frozen. I want him soft." That's not me. That's David Cronenberg. I mean, how do you not love that? And people are like, "Aren't you mad?" No. Why would I be mad? The thing is, when actors, even I do it, in my own scene where I wrote my own dialogue, when I came in, I'm changing stuff left and right because sometimes the words out of the writer's mouth don't work in the words of the actor's mouth. You've got to make it your own sometimes. I never took offense by that crap.
Yeah.
I'm not a princess like some of the. I guess princess is the wrong term. I'm not. I just don't get insecure about that stuff.
Yeah, no, and it's David Cronenberg. I mean, come on, David Cronenberg. Right. I love that man. To me, he's the godfather of body horror. No one does it like him.
No.
And to see him in there, I enjoyed every minute of him in there. Even his death scene, which is like a scorpion from Mortal Kombat death scene. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome.
It is a great, we had such a great special effects team. And the thing is, it's his special effects team.
I know, that's
the whole deal. Because Jimmy worked for Cronenberg, and Jimmy called Cronenberg and said, hey, do you mind if I use your effects team on Jason X? And Cronenberg was like, I don't mind, but you have to cast me. That was the deal. How can you say no to that? Wait, you want to be in our movie? And then we can use your, okay. So,
right? That's our deal. Lovely. Fine, I'm going to take it. I mean, to have David Cronenberg in your film, that's awesome right then and there.
It is.
But his special effects team is great.
And there may be haters, and I'm okay with that because we got Cronenberg. And by the way,
exactly.
If Cronenberg wants Jason soft, by God, Jason will be soft.
Exactly.
That's just the rule.
And Mike, right now, I know the whole part of that warehouse scene where Cronenberg walks in and he's talking, and you can see the water on the floor. Is that supposed to represent the Crystal Lake? I don't know if you can remember it, but in the beginning,
I do remember that, and I don't know if that was production design or somebody. I never heard that. That's brilliant if that's the case. I never heard that.
I didn't hear it either. I just, I'm a fan of the franchise, so when I watch things, they get burned into my head, and when I watch them a million times over, I see certain things in the film that I would have missed the first time around because I'm so enthralled into it. And I noticed that in the warehouse scene, well, it's not the warehouse scene, but in the scene where they're going into the cryogenic unit, David Cronenberg is there. I noticed the water that was in there, and I'm thinking, why is the floor all wet? I'm like, well, maybe that's the representation of Crystal Lake because it's Crystal Lake Research, right? Research laboratories.
Is that the scene where they go into the cryo unit where the machine is, or is that the scene where they go in where Jason's kept?
That's the scene in the beginning where they're first walking in, and he says that I want Jason soft, and you can see the water on the floor inside the. I'm assuming it's the cryogenic unit before it goes off, because no, it's the scene right before. Jason's still hanging, right? He's hanging. You've got the security guard inside.
So it's in that big warehouse looking room, right? With the columns?
Yeah.
Then they had to have added the water. They had to.
Genius.
This was a big building that was under roof, so they did that on purpose.
That was genius because I associated because it's Camp Crystal Lake Research Laboratories, and so the water on the ground there. I know I seen it the first time around, and as I'm watching it again over and over, I realized I'm like that had to be associated with Camp Crystal Lake. Obviously, there's no lake there, so the research. I think that's brilliant if they did that on purpose.
Yeah. It had to be on purpose. So there's that was. But I mean, look, that's part of the beauty of making movies, because for Jason X, it was eye-opening because you don't think about, like, you write things and then you come back and somebody's building something that you wrote. Like, I wrote that they tapped an ear unit at some point. I don't even think the line's still in the movie, but we all had these little ear inserts. Mm-hmm. All the grunts did. Right. And it was just a throwaway line that I never thought about, but they had to bring in this specialist who then put molds into our ears. Like, we had to lay there and they poured wax in our ears. I mean, and this lady was brought in to do all this stuff. And because I accidentally wrote something. So, it's just, and then you have people who go above and beyond doing stuff that you didn't even think of, like putting Crystal Lake on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that was, I didn't read that anywhere or hear it anywhere in like the commentary afterwards or the extras. Yeah. I registered it visually, and I'm just like, is that symbolism of Crystal Lake? Because you can see the water, like it's not like it's being hidden or anything. So I'm pretty sure that was done on purpose.
I feel like I know the scene you're talking. I feel like that's the scene in the hallway.
It is. It's when they're walking down
and there's water in it. I never thought of it that way, but that makes complete sense. I wonder who I could ask about that.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to know if that was actually part, like, it was that their symbolism of Crystal Lake, because you technically don't see Crystal Lake anywhere in the film. You got the sleeping bag girls that were added in later on, but you don't actually see Crystal Lake anywhere. So I think the symbolism of the floor being wet in the Camp Crystal Lake Research Facility or laboratory, whatever it was called, is symbolism to that. I would love to know if that's an actual thing.
I don't know who to ask. I mean, let me think about that.
Oh yeah, take your time.
I'll figure. No, I don't have to figure it out now, but I will figure it out.
Of course.
I will let you know if I can find someone.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know. I would love to know. Ice has a question, gardening question. He goes, I like to grow things. I have my own little garden. I have a chili, lemon, and cucumber, which is difficult to grow here in Sweden. I always like to try new stuff. Do Todd have any ideas of stuff I should try?
Well, my wife is from Ireland, so we have lots of potatoes. And the lovely thing about them is they're basically a weed. Once you put potatoes in the ground, they just spread out and they go everywhere. So if we ever need potatoes, we just go dig in the side of the house. And what are my favorites? Tomatoes obviously are favorites because you're outside. Like we had a bunch of writers come over now that everybody's vaxxed, and so we built a fire in the fire pit and had a bunch of writers come over. And I kept and there's tons of alcohol, and everybody keeps going over and picking tomatoes off the plant and just popping them in. And I just kind of like that. I've only had one cucumber plant, but it was great. I had no idea that cucumbers were thorny though. That was new for me. I guess the raw ones are thorny. Because when you grab them, it like hurts. So at least the brand that I had, I guess it's to keep critters out of them. And then I've got a fountain I'm in my tool shed, by the way. I don't know if you didn't notice, but
No.
on that wall on the other side of you is a fountain. And inside the fountain is a bunch of goldfish that eat the mosquitoes. And there's all kinds of stuff growing around the fountain. And unfortunately, I have a possum that keeps trying to get in there and eat all my goldfish, and he was active last night. I've got strawberries growing out of the fountain, so he kind of trashed all my strawberries. I got a fence over the top of it, so he shouldn't be able to get in there and get them. But,
oh my!
But I'm glad you all came here for gardening advice because I have.
Oh yeah, we do. We have some gardeners in here. That head that's next to you, your face right there, is from Jason X? Is that from the Jason X?
That is. This is the close-up from Jason X. Yeah. There were two heads made. One was to throw down the floor. Yep. And then this is Evan Dixon's hat. He left it over the other night. So if you leave anything at my house, it's going to go on the head. But yeah, this was the close-up head. And then it's been in 3 movies now. Because I would be in movies that my friends were in, and I would say, oh, by the way, do you want me to bring my head? And they were like, oh, yes, please. And so now it's been in 3 movies.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I mean, it's still alive. I don't know how. It's delicate. Like
for sure.
It feels like it wouldn't take a lot of pressure to just stick your finger right into that. And there's a couple of spots where that is, but this is the old silicone version, so they don't make them like this anymore. So the fact that it's still in this good shape, and then Sean presented it to me in like this glass cage. And so it sat in the house for a while. The problem was there's a lot of chemicals and shit on it. So the inside the glass cage, it just started eating the glass. So I took it out. So now it's just killing me, as it should.
You're the second actor that I know that has kept their head. The actor from Omen. In Omen, I can't remember the actor's name at the moment, but he's in his car and he gets decapitated by the famous glass scene. If you ever seen the Omen.
Oh, yeah.
He kept his head. His ex-wife took it in a divorce.
He's still alive, and that's horrible.
He is still alive, but yes, he got it. He was in a divorce, and his wife took his friggin' head.
I mean, wow, that would hurt.
Right.
But my ex-wife has the I don't think she won it in the divorce, but she has my Jason X machete, which just happens to be at her house. I could probably get it.
Yeah, right.
But I've got the God Killers up there, and
yes, we see. It's awesome.
The trick knife, and there's crap all over the place.
That's great.
Yeah, there was a guy in Drive Angry, who was named Man with Wig, and the wig's over there somewhere. So. This is both a tool shed and storage unit, obviously. So.
That's awesome, though. Nice little area. Lord Lupus has a question. Todd, I heard you mention Big Trouble, Little China. Do you think they should do a second, or do you think it ended perfectly? And also, I recommend Quake 4 for him as a game. Same thing, same. Lament Butterfly recommended Quake 4 as well.
I played Quake 4 and I adore Quake 4. And I think I don't know what they're doing with Big Trouble in Little China. Actually, I haven't. I know the guy's doing it, but I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't looked. I try to stay away from all the spoilers.
Yeah,
my
same.
guess would be is that it's a modern day retelling, and I would hope that they bring
Russell.
Yeah, they bring him back.
I love Kurt Russell.
The old curmudgeon that he's always been.
Pork Chop Express.
Yeah, but who knows? I have no idea what they're going to do. I remember seeing the Carpenter at a screening for it. It hasn't been that long ago, like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And somebody said, "You think they'll ever remake it?" And he was like, "It failed. It was a box office disaster. No, they're not going to remake it." And now they're remaking it. So
yeah, I'm not really a big fan on remakes. I mean, there's very few remakes that actually outdo or on par with the original. I'm a huge Big Trouble Little China fan. I watch that movie at least once a month. And they could do a sequel. They have to have Russell in there. They'd have to have the Pork Chop Express because if we remember, at the end, the monster that was down below was actually on the truck of the Pork Chop Express as Kurt Russell is driving down the road, and then you see the monster pop up. You could start a sequel off of that, but I definitely don't want to remake. To me, The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China, they don't need remakes. A sequel? Sure. And The Thing did have a sequel later on, Big Trouble Little China, but they would have to bring back specific characters to make it go well. Yeah, I totally agree. And by the way, Reaper, you're right. It's David Warner. I couldn't think of that. David Warner is a fantastic actor. That's it, Reaper.
Tons of awesome. He was a Klingon, for God's sake.
Yes.
And time after time, I mean, come on, he was Jack the Ripper. So anyway, we get into that all day. But yes, it's funny that you say that because I felt very similar to you on that issue. And certainly when they came to us about, or they came to me about remaking, what was that movie I remade? Bloody Valentine? Yeah, that was it. Doing that. I came to peace knowing that the original still exists. I still love the original for all different reasons. And for what it did at the time, because you already had Halloween, you already had Friday the 13th, but it came in as a more adult, I don't know, it just, everything about it seemed different, seemed like they were trying something different. So I appreciate it for different reasons. But that movie will always exist. So I don't necessarily mind the remakes, although I prefer, and a lot of people hate this movie, but I prefer what they did with Tron. I prefer what we were going to do with Hellraiser. What we were going to do with Hellraiser was Clive's world still exists,
right,
and that story took place. Our story is taking place over here in the same world. It's just in a different area.
Right.
And so I like that. I understand the remake thing. Like Jumanji, for instance. You go back and look at the original Jumanji, it's a great movie.
Oh, yes.
But if you look at the new Jumanji, I mean, is it a remake? Is it, I mean, it's actually, I guess it isn't a remake, is it? It's the same.
It'd be, yeah.
It's not a remake because it's the same, because they're not playing a board game. They're playing, so it's not a remake. It's just, it's a
reimagining, I would think.
Sequel.
Yeah, a sequel. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with I just hate when they do a remake and it sucks, because there's the majority of the remakes, they do suck. Instead of listening to fans, they create something that prime example, Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street and Child's Play. If they would have renamed the new Child's Play something other than, I think it would have been really good in the box office. I refused to watch it until later on, because I'm a Child's Play fan, and I thought the remake of Chucky, without having Brad Dourif playing,
no, you're right.
It was just
you're absolutely right. I was, and I have felt the same way on many occasions about lots of different. It's there's two things that happen, I think. And part of it is in Hollywood, you have a lot of people who aren't necessarily passionate about what they're doing. They're doing it for the paycheck. They're doing it for the possible franchise. They're doing it for a lot of different reasons. But I've had and I don't know that Lionsgate went into the remake of Bloody Valentine because they loved Bloody Valentine. I know that one of the executives on it was very close to the original writers. And so it certainly felt like there was some passion involved, but perhaps not from the entire company.
Right.
And I've been in situations where I know when we were pitching and sort of going through the process on the fly, there were people who were not passionate about the fly. They were simply passionate about having their own big franchise. And that's the wrong reason.
I agree.
I'm involved in a remake right now, and I can say from the producers to the director, everyone involved is slasher, horror, genre nuts in the best possible way.
That's great.
That's nice. That's nice when you can have a conversation and you're literally referencing a dozen different horror movies as you're having this conversation. And that doesn't often happen.
Right.
And so it's nice to feel like you're doing something that out of the love of the original, out of the love of the franchise, and out of the love of just the genre itself.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't often happen.
No, it doesn't often happen, and you can see that where it does happen in the Evil Dead remake in 2013. Yeah. I love the original Evil Dead, but when I seen, oh my Lord, when I seen the 2013 in the movie theater, I was in awe. It's very rare, like I said, to get a remake or reimagining that. Like,
it was perfect. It was absolutely perfectly well done. I felt the same way. I loved it. And for all the right reasons. And it didn't feel like it was a regurgitation of the original movie. It felt like they were trying to do something different and trying to do something updated, and that they actually loved it, that they loved the original. So it was fun.
Yeah, no, and it's great. And you can see that when you have fans of the genre creating films, and you see that a lot in indie films. Another reason why I love indie films is that they are horror fans. They started out as horror fans, and they started getting their start in the industry by creating fan-made films. And you can see the love, the blood, sweat, and tears that go in behind creating some of these fan-made films. Jason Rising is not out yet. August 13th, Jason Rising will be released. But there's films like Friday the 13th Vengeance, where they bring in Elias Voorhees, and very well made, and you can tell that they are fans of the franchise. There's a Halloween one as well that I just recently watched, which was really good.
That's good.
Horror Freak has a question for you. Todd, what was the inspiration for Jason's look in Jason X, and was the writing process behind it?
The old Jason look or the Uber Jason look? But I'll answer both.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with the current Jason look. That was all production design. Other than he was frozen with his machete up, so when he falls, he cuts somebody's arm off. Because even when frozen, Jason's very lethal.
Yes.
But the Uber Jason, I certainly had some input on, and I always forget the guy's name. He was in Judge Dredd with Stallone, and there's a moment when Dredd is evicted from the city, and he's out in the middle of nowhere, and he runs into this guy who's sort of half robotic and half, and there's a name for him, and I can't ever remember. It's not.
I can't even remember either. I've seen that movie such a long time ago.
But he's metal and flesh, and it looks like it fucking hurts. It looks and that was always the idea, is that this machine had been busted because he fell into it, and so it's putting him back together, just grabbing junk from around the lab. And so when he's put back together, he looks horrendous. Like he looks like he's in hell, and that is not what we ended up with. And by the way, what we ended up with is not bad. When you take into consideration that the guy who designed Uber Jason designed RoboCop, you can kind of see how we ended up there. And he's iconic now.
Yes.
It's the whole finish of the movie is much more polished than was ever in my head. So when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't like it I didn't like it. I did like it. I just didn't like visually or creatively, I didn't like. I wanted it to be dirtier and darker, and I wanted it to be more alien and less Star Trek, if that made sense.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've softened to it, as I think a lot of fans have. But certainly in the beginning, that's how I felt. And so that was production design, that was effects, that was, But that's how a movie is made. It's not the writer starts the process, creates a blueprint, and then everybody goes from there.
Yeah.
No regrets.
I like the way Jason turned out. I like the whole film. And like I said, my husband, who is not does not like in horror movies, he sits through them. He really enjoyed Jason X. So it's got to tell you something when someone who's not even the horror genre, doesn't even like it, comes in and watches your film and is like, I really enjoyed this one. It's his favorite out of the whole franchise. So.
I mean, that's not an uncommon response. Most people who are not most people, a lot of people who are huge fans of the franchise do not like Jason X.
Yeah.
But outsiders come in and they're like,
and they love it.
So.
Yeah, I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, and I cannot stand Jason Goes to Manhattan. I mean, I love Kane Hodder. I think he's an amazing Jason. He has made Jason, but Jason Takes Manhattan, I don't like it at all. It's the least favorite, and then it's the remake 2009 is right from there. But Jason X never came across my mind as I disliked it at all.
I mean, I get in that discussion a lot. I don't like Jason Takes Manhattan. Again, I also, I'm biased, obviously, but I adore Kane as well. And I think his performance as Jason is fantastic.
Exactly.
But if you're going to take Manhattan, I want you to take Manhattan. I put Jason in space, and by God, I put Jason in space. He's only on an Earth for a very short period of time. And I know a lot of that had to do with, I guess, budget and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I wanted to see that movie. That's my frustration. My frustration isn't that I don't necessarily like the movie.
Right.
It's that I didn't get what I was promised. I wanted to see Jason Voorhees in New York. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on, what a movie that would be. And I've been asked several times if you could make any of the movies in the franchise, which one? That one, obviously, because I want to see him in Manhattan.
Yes, and
I want to see him take it.
He was in Vancouver. That's where he was, because they had to dirty up. And don't take this offense, Americans or anyone from New York. They had to dirty up certain areas of Vancouver with graffiti and stuff like that to kind of portray Manhattan. One of the things that I didn't like, and the reason why I didn't like it, they made Jason look like a normal boy when they bring him up in the film, and especially underneath the water. We know Jason had a disability. We know Jason was not a normal-looking boy, and that I couldn't stand. And I couldn't stand the Jason taking his mask off and kicking the radio, looking at those guys like that. Jason would have killed them. Jason's an unstoppable murdering machine. He's not going to walk by a group of punks and be like, yeah, okay, kick your radio and I'm on my way. He'd slaughter those sons of bitches. Yeah.
Yeah, same. And it felt like it was more, a joke than...
Well, yeah, they didn't keep with the, I can see Jason going to Manhattan from Camp Crystal Lake because where it was filmed is New Jersey, borderline between New York and I can see that. I can see him being pulled in. I can see that. The fact that he didn't murder everybody in sight, that I can't understand.
I mean, this has always been tough for me because, I put Jason in space. So I on some level, I have no right to criticize anyone for doing anything in any other movie ever. But again, for me, it comes back to I wanted to see the Jason Voorhees that we have seen for all these episodes and books and everything else. I wanted to see that guy dropped into Manhattan. And we even talked about, which is horrible now, but we talked about Jason in the Hood. We talked about Jason. You think all the other, we had a bunch of catchphrases like that. We were going to have the government swoop Jason up and drop him into, I forget who we were in conflict with at the time, Afghanistan or wherever it was. Just drop Jason into occupied territory and see what happens. And
that'd be awesome.
Had tons of goofy ideas like that. But it was Jason in a Blade Runner world. That was the one that finally stopped us, and we started talking seriously. And then we went into Jason. We went into Aliens. We called it Friday the 13th 10 forever, and then we just started calling it Jason X for short. And just stuck.
And Jason X just stuck to it. That's nice. But yeah, I agree. That would have been funny. And I mean, Leprechaun went into the ghetto, right?
Yeah.
He went in there, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be too bad idea. Or Desert Storm Jason, drop him in the middle.
That's what it was. It was Desert Storm. We were going to drop him in the middle of Desert Storm.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I think it would have been funny to see. Mr.
Look.
Scott has a question for you. Is there another horror franchise that you would have liked to take a crack as a writer?
I mean, the thing is, I took a crack at a lot of them, and it just didn't happen. Freddy versus Jason, I wrote a script that I liked, which was more King Kong versus Godzilla. It was just event, and I enjoyed it. Halloween 3D, I will always regret that we were never able to make that one.
Yeah.
We loved it. It was a lot of fun, and I would have played a small part in it and kept my pants on. That would have been nice for a change. And then Hellraiser would have been glorious.
Right.
We did so much work on Hellraiser. We wrote a very adult version of Hellraiser that did not replace Clive's. It was Clive's movie had happened.
Right.
Our movie was happening a little bit at a different time.
In the universe.
It wasn't this. It was in the same universe. I don't know that you would. Well, I guess you could call it a sequel, but it was certainly a reboot sequel kind of thing. And then the problem with the Weinsteins, other than the glaring problems that everybody found out about later, was that they were indecisive in that whatever movie was hot at the time, that's what they wanted to do. And I think Priest with
yes, that's a good
Vision,
film.
I can't remember, that was hot at the time, and so they wanted this big budget, huge Hellraiser, which is weird, but I think we delivered on that. And then something else had come out, and they wanted it to be a little different. And so, it was about a husband and a wife, and then we rewrote it to be about a husband and his daughter, so we could make it younger.
Right.
And then I think one of the Final Destinations came out, and they just wanted it to be all teenagers. And so we rewrote it again, and we never got to script. It was always just these really big outlines. And I loved each one of them. I liked the first one the best, second one second, the third one third. But I still think the third one was great. And we didn't do it. And so, I mean, if I had to choose, I don't know what I would choose. It's hard to know. And those are just the older ones. I mean, now you've got more horror coming out and franchises coming out, and there's so many to choose from. I mean, I think Hellraiser would be the one that would have been the most fun.
Yeah.
Halloween 3D, I will always regret, because to have worked with Jason and worked with the Miner and worked with Michael, that would have been lovely. But Hellraiser would have been so much fun. So.
Yeah, no, I'm a Hellraiser fan. I love that whole. I mean, it gets a little crazy after 3 in the franchise, but I still enjoy that whole franchise. Yeah. Have you ever thought of doing fan-made films? Maybe not with a big studio, but fan-made film, taking your ideas and crowdfunding for it and creating your own film?
I mean, Patrick and I have talked about that a couple of times. I mean, the biggest issue with what we do is you tend to get so busy chasing jobs that you really don't have time to focus on just doing something for yourself. It's just like right now I've got 3 screenplays being written. 1 is a remake, 2 are original. I'm doing a rewrite on a rock and roll biopic. A rewrite on a true crime.
Ooh.
Then there's a half a dozen pitches in different places. There's a novel. I mean, all of this happens at the same time, and and it's always been this. It's always. I mean, Patrick and I talked about it just last week that we did do tons of work. 6 months of work on The Fly. 6 months of work on Ghost Rider. I mean, we went in multiple times on Fright Night. We pitched when it was at Culpepper's company, and then we went back and pitched when it was at DreamWorks. And then Marty got the job, and they made the movie, and it's a great movie. But it's, you go through that process, and it's just so draining and so. Yeah. And I have on the computer, I have a file that's called Dead Projects. And it's just filled with all of these traumatic stories of movies that we worked on and never happened. And so, no, to answer your question, I have not realistically looked at doing as crowdfunding something. At least not yet. It can
Not
still
yet.
happen.
Well, maybe in the future, because there's like
Yes.
Indiegogo. I'm a big like I said earlier, I'm a big supporter of indie films, so I back a lot of them when I have extra funds, and I think they're great. And you never know, maybe in the future you'll have the time to
Yes.
do something like that,
That
right?
would be lovely. Yeah.
I have a question about Drive Angry. Nicolas Cage is in that film. What did you get to work with him? Like, what was it like to be on that set? Because it wasn't Amber Heard in that one as well. Am I
Yeah.
thinking somebody
Amber
else?
was there. Yeah, Amber was there the first week. So we did all of our scenes the first week. And then Billy, Bill, and Nick showed up. And Nick was and still is an alien. He's
Yes.
not like anybody I've ever met. But I think but I think if I met a Brad Pitt, I think if I met somebody who was at that level of celebrity, I think it changes you. I think everything about it, because you can't live in the real world.
Yeah.
And that's it. And as lovely as he was, I would never want that. Like, I remember how, and I said Brad Pitt, I remember how desperately Brad Pitt wanted to be a star. And then once he got to be a star, you see how introverted he becomes and how he hides from the media and he hides from paparazzi. And so I think it's one of those things that, be careful what you wish for.
It's a curse and a blessing.
Yeah. And Cage, I mean, there's some beautiful stories with Cage. I mean, he, well, I don't know if this is a beautiful story, but it can be a sad story. It was Mike DeLuca, who's a producer, and Patrick Lussier, who directed the film, and myself. We went to a steak and lobster joint one night in Shreveport, Louisiana, and it was probably the most expensive joint you can go to in Shreveport, Louisiana. And we go in and we're sitting there, and within 2 minutes of sitting down, somebody comes up. Oh, Mr. Cage, can I have your autograph? And Nick was lovely. He's, oh, absolutely. And he signs the autograph and thank you so much. Thank you. And the guy walks away. So we're all talking. We order. Somebody else comes up. Can I have your autograph? Yes. And so this goes on for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And it's literally every 2-3 minutes, somebody new comes up. Right. And they're all sitting around us and they see him. Oh, go ask him. And so, but they're also all drinking. And so the longer we stay there, the drunker they get. And at some point, it's just like the Beatles. We were swarmed. I've never seen anything like it. And this guy, this drunk guy is like, here. And he shoves his phone in Nick's face. He's like, talk to my wife. She don't believe you're here. And it was just, and Nick stood up and he was like, so we're done, right? We're done. And we'd had the appetizer. And we were all like, yeah. So Nick drops his Black American Express and we rush out and we help him. He gets in his car. We don't help him. He can climb in the car on his own. But he gets in his car and the driver takes him away. And we're standing there. We go back in and get the food. And so I end up, Patrick gets his food. DeLuca gets his food. I take mine and Nick's food because I'm going to have breakfast on Nick's food. And we're like, well, what do we do now? And DeLuca's like, we are in Louisiana with Nick Cage's Black American Express card. What can't we do?
Right.
And so, but I mean, you think about that. You can't go, like Nick can't go to a Target. Nick can't do anything normal. He can't do those kind of things.
No.
But he's a lovely guy. And I remember when we did the premiere for the movie, I was standing in the hallway at the front of the auditorium, and so people are coming in, and he comes in with his little group, and he walks past, and we make eye contact, and he walks past, and I talked to him dozens of times, but Nick talks to thousands of people, you know, all the time, and so he walks by, and we make eye contact, and he walks by, and you see it in his eyes. He's like, I know him, and he walks by, and he's like, Todd, and he turns, and he comes back, and he's shaking my hand, but he meets so many people. And, he has to go back through the files to figure out who I am.
Right.
But he was lovely.
I'm a big Nick Cage fan. I like him. I love him in horror films. I like him in Color of Night. Color Out of Space. Sorry. Color Out of Space was an amazing film, and Mandy. I loved both
Mandy,
of those
yeah.
films, seeing him in those, and I think he flourishes in horror films. That's just my opinion.
He does. He's fantastic. And by the way, we don't deserve this, but he's always been so lovely to us. In any interviews, he almost always, if somebody says, "What were your favorite movies?" Drive Angry is one of the ones he always mentions. So I mean, it's just that's very very nice of him.
Film.
Yeah, we did have a blast on that film.
Yeah. Do you ever get starstruck?
I have, yeah. I was a big police fan when I was growing up, and so I went to when I was doing The Messengers, the producers took me to Stuart Copeland's bar, which is here in LA. Stuart Copeland was the drummer for the Police.
Yeah.
And he and his brother, who's their manager, was there that night, and I was just like all tongue tied, which is weird because I'd met all these different people, and so it was this guy from a band that I was just like I was a lovely fangirl, by the way. I was just loving it, and
that's awesome.
I totally. Yeah, it was wonderful. But trying to think who else. I mean, I try to be like, I never took pictures with Nick. People were constantly going up to him on set. Stand-ins were going up, taking pictures with him. I never, because I don't want to invade that privacy, because I always felt that way. And even here in LA, you see people all the time. Mm-hmm. And I've never gone up and asked for a picture. I only did it once, and I don't regret doing it. I saw Barney Fife on a plane once years ago, and I asked if I could get a picture with him, and he was lovely to say yes. And so we ended up sitting with each other on the flight, and I don't regret that. That's what I don't regret. But normally I don't do that.
Right. Well, yeah, I gather there's a bit of professionalism and respect for the other person's privacy and space. I could just imagine what it's like to be that top of a celebrity and not be able to go to the store, not be able to sit down with your family and eat a dinner without having 5 million people come to you. It's got to be annoying. Like I said, it's a blessing and a curse all in one.
Yeah. And by the way, it never happens to me. And, and so I've never had to, I don't know that I can comprehend what it's like to live in that world. But I say that while we were all locked down during the pandemic, we decided to refinance. And so we had an appraiser come through the house. And so we're both in masks, and we're through the house, walking through outside, measuring and doing all this sort of stuff. And so then we get into the living room, and he looks at me weird. And again, I'm in a mask, and he says, "You're Jason X." Yeah. And then he's like, "Bloody Valentine," and he starts going through all of these things, and you did this, and I saw you on this podcast, and it was weird and lovely at the same time. And so now his name is Vic, and now we're good friends.
That's awesome, though. And I mean, but it's nice it's got to have a nice feeling to be recognized for your work.
Yeah,
it
is. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, go ahead. I'm done.
Well, I was just thinking back to a time that. In this business, you have good years and bad years. And I can remember a time when I was having a particular bad year, and I went to apply for a job at a bookstore. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting, they had this little chair and table where you sit, and I'm sitting, signing it out. And then these guys walk up. It's like, I never recognized, this is maybe the third time it's ever happened. And this guy goes up and says, "You were in Jason X. I guess that didn't work out very well. What? You applying for a job here?" And so then they all just started writing me about applying for a job. And I was like, "Dude, I got bills to pay."
Right? It's not easy being in Hollywood.
It is not sometimes easy.
No.
And then oddly enough, I ended up getting a job right after that. I've always been lucky. I've always, just as money dried up, I would always get a job. And so that was one of those times.
Oh, that's really good.
It is lucky. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there was that time I slept in the car, but hey, it happens.
Well, if you're trying to make your dreams come true, you're going to do everything in your power to do so. If that means sleeping in a friggin' vehicle, then that means sleeping in a friggin' vehicle.
Sometimes. Hey, at least I had a vehicle to sleep in.
Exactly. Some don't. Reaper has a question for you. This was done earlier. If you had a chance to write a new script or story for a Bloody Valentine video game, would you like to do that?
Yeah, I love writing for video games. And video games are tough because, there's a lot of different choices. It's
Yeah.
not like a linear story. You know, you can go in a bunch of different directions. So video games are tough. I've written a bunch of video games over the year. I wrote this thing called Demonic that Clive Barker ended up working on later.
Yes.
And it's always been fun to work on video games. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, Valentine's, is the game out? Do I not know about this game, or is it something?
No. I think it was just something that Reaper was thinking about.
Yeah, because I think I saw Reaper ask that question earlier. But
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, totally. I mean, that would be a fun game to
Gun Media
play.
Gun Media is a nice little indie dev company, and Gun Media help with Friday the 13th, and they have a new video game coming out. We don't know what it is yet. I have some ideas of what movie it is, but they're working with Kane Hodder currently in some game stuff. So if you ever want to pitch a game, talk to Gun Media.
That's the place to go.
Yep, and I can tag you in Wes's. I follow Wes Skelter on Twitter, so I can always tag you in there. But Gun Media, I love their work, and they are currently working on a new video game with Kane Hodder. Kane is doing all of the moves like he did in Friday the 13th. I'm thinking it's either a Halloween film, a Halloween game, or a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, or Hatchet, one of those around there. But if you ever have an idea,
I have certainly heard rumors.
yes, there's lots of rumors.
So I have indeed. I can neither confirm nor deny if I know more than that.
Right. It's Mr. Scott has a question. What other writers would you be interested in collaborating with, if any at all?
I think it would be a hoot to collaborate with Kevin Williamson, because Kevin changed. I don't think Kevin gets the credit he should get. And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of love and hate for different kinds of movies and different genres of movies. And Kevin, what is happening to horror right now? It's all over TV. It's all over film.
Yep.
Companies that didn't used to do it now do it. When I started, it was just Dimension and it was just New Line, and there were a few other little randoms here and there. But it was mostly just those guys. And when you were pitching, that's where you went, because that's where you got your job. That's where I got my jobs. And and so it's when you look at what Kevin did when he wrote Scream, and it opened it dismally at like 6 million, 7 million, whatever it was. The next week it opened bigger, and the next week it opened bigger. He changed the face of all of this.
Yes.
And he did it by himself. Granted, he had his crew and he had all that, but this was him doing it because he had this huge wealth of movies just sitting there that he just started going out with. And suddenly everybody was doing genre, everybody. And it changed everything. And it still has. It never went away. And I think without Scream, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You needed something to change the way that Hollywood looked at horror.
Yes.
And they always hated it.
Oh, they did.
When we did Messengers, it was years after Scream. And we were still working with a company that you could tell they were embarrassed to be doing this movie. They knew it was going to make money, but they were embarrassed about it. And it did make money. It opened #1 that first day. And you might hear my sprinklers turning on right now. It's a garden kind of thing.
It's all good.
And so, but yeah, I would love to work with Kevin. There's a bunch of different writers that I would happily collaborate with. But Kevin's the one who comes to mind.
Right on. Yeah. No, I know Scream broke some boundaries for horror, especially coming into the 90s. You had Candyman, and then you had Scream come in. And I like the Scream franchise. I'm excited to see what this new Scream has to offer.
I am too. I hear great things.
I've heard some good things about it as well. But yeah, they did break boundaries, and everybody is now getting into horror. I remember back in the day, and New Line Cinemas was saved by Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street saved New Line Cinema from going bankrupt.
It's the house that Freddie built.
Exactly. It is the house that Freddie built. And, to see everybody coming into horror, and now everyone wants their hands into it. They see what kind of money can be made at it as well. Yeah. It has a huge fan following. Maybe not as big as some action movies do, but it still has a big following.
Yeah. Certainly Blumhouse gets some credit too, because Blumhouse
Yeah.
created a monstrosity on a $5,000 movie, and now Jason has taken it into a different area. And plus, now you've got Ryan there, and Ryan's not an executive who comes in because he wants to make money at this new thing. I mean, Ryan started in horror journalism. Ryan started loving. He didn't start in horror journalism. He started as a kid loving horror movies. So you have somebody looking after the Halloween franchise who actually loves the Halloween franchise. So you haven't often had that. So that's kind of a new thing. And but everybody at Blumhouse is Cooper's great. I mean, they're all good at what they do, and they're also keeping horror alive. And I thought Get Out was fantastic, and it's doing what Misery did. Misery sort of took the concept of horror and suddenly you're getting Oscar nominations. I mean, it was, and now that's happening across the board with horror, and so I love it.
Yeah, because before you weren't getting any nominees or anything like that. And I believe Silence of the Lambs was one that did get, and I want to say The Exorcist, but don't quote me on that one. Misery was a great film. Yeah.
I think Sir Anthony, wasn't Sir Anthony, maybe they both were.
I think it was Anthony
nominated.
Hopkins, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the thing I've always thought about horror is that it's always been weird to me that so many executives look down their noses at horror, because horror is all of the genres rolled into one. You can have romance, you can have drama. Yeah. You have to have all of these genres rolled into one, where if you go see a romantic comedy, nobody's going to get beheaded for the most part. So, I mean, horror is the only genre that has everything. It has comedy. And so, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the hardest one to write. And so it's funny to me that a lot of times horror writers and horror directors will get stuck in that genre. We're like, but we've done comedy. We've done action. We've done everything if you write one horror movie. So it's a weird business.
It is. It definitely is. And I mean, we have awesome horror comedies. Shaun of the Dead, Dale and Tucker vs. Evil. So you do have them. Army of Darkness. It's not overly horror, but you've got the Evil Dead franchise, because you've got the comedy that's within the dark comedy that's within the Evil Dead franchise, and Evil Dead, Ash vs. Evil Dead, right? Yeah. So you have comedy in there. We also have love stories in there. You've got Dracula, right? Frankenstein, all of those. Yeah. You found the My Bloody Valentine nude scene. Monkey. Or Don't Lose Your Head to Love. Yeah, exactly. Reaper wants to know. Oh, go ahead.
I was say that's a good. I mean, Betsy did a lovely job in that nude scene.
Yeah. Oh, I liked My Bloody Valentine remake. Or 3D, I should say. I enjoyed that film.
It's funny because when I wrote it so that at the end of that fuck scene, Betsy puts her clothes on and chases after Frank. Right. And Betsy, the actress, was like, I wouldn't put my clothes on. I would just go get that tape. And we were all like, are you sure? Yes.
That's awesome.
Like, okay. And I remember one of the executives, when we told him, he was like, that's an extra $10 million at the box office. And so she stayed naked through that whole scene. That was her idea. I would have never thought to do that. So
that's awesome.
Look, I was glad to do it, because male writers have been requiring women take their clothes off in horror movies forever. And it was time some writer put his ass on the line. And so I was more than happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be more male nudity in horror films, or any film, actually, because women are always nude. Topless, or you see their ass all the time. It's very rare that you see men naked in films. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why the equality isn't there, but...
Well, for me, it goes all the way back to not Valentine. It goes back to Jason X, because I didn't write any nudity into Jason X, because I just felt like it wasn't right to make some poor actress take her clothes off.
Yeah.
when you have, I mean, I understand it when you couldn't see nudity. Now you have the internet, and you freaking see nudity everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So you don't have to just make some girl expose herself for no reason. If there's a plot reason for it, then I'm okay with it. For instance, when I was later forced to put nudity into it, there was a plot point. It points back to the other movies. These two girls are trying to distract Jason. I think it works. But
yes, and I know that was put in after the fact because you wrote it with no nudity.
I did. I mean, even the sex scene that happens before that,
there's no nudity.
There's no nudity.
Except for his nipples that are being twisted by an apparatus.
And you know what? A lot of people like that.
Hey, no shame in that.
That pushes buttons that haven't been pushed before, and they deserve to be pushed too.
Exactly.
Yes, kinky.
Yeah, and there's no kink shame here at all.
No,
But no, I did see that there was no nudity written in when you did Jason X, and I know the two girls at the in the VR set there was brought in after the fact.
Yeah, and my dick was in Drive Angry, but later they had to take it out.
They took it out later.
Yeah, they felt it was too distracting. So,
really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it was Amber's idea. Amber, because we'd done the scene several times, and Amber's like, and I'm always standing there with this sheet over my junk, and Amber's like, you should drop the sheet when I come back. And I was like, no, I'm not going to drop the sheet. And Krista was behind her going, oh, you should drop the sheet. so I was like, okay, I'll drop the sheet. So nobody knew it was going to happen. And so I dropped the sheet. And it was there for a while, but then it was apparently deemed too distracting.
Too distracting?
Which doesn't make any sense.
Is there like a director's cut where that's added in? Or they just deleted it?
Nah, they totally deleted it.
And what a shame.
I mean, no, I'm sure it still exists on a hard drive somewhere.
Somewhere, right?
I don't know. I'll Google my dick later and see if it shows up. But I haven't seen it. Can
anyone at their computer right now?
Yeah, can we say dick on this live?
Oh, we can say whatever you like on this live stream. I saw a indie film called Cherokee Creek, written by and produced by Todd Jenkins and Billy Blair, and this is the first film that I've seen that had full male nudity, frontal flying dick going through the air. It was a great. It's a raunchy 80s style horror comedy film. It's great. If you haven't seen it, it's called Cherokee Creek. And this is one of the first films where I see
I saw a trailer for it. I think somebody put something up.
Yeah. And it's full male frontal nudity. And I was just like, that's awesome. I mean, not just because it's a male nudity. I'm thinking the equality that comes with females being buck naked in horror films. And seeing male nudity in this one, I was just like, that's awesome to see. Again, it was an independent film, so they were able to get away with it, where studios would have probably cut that shit right out of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly when we did Valentine, Betsy and I choreographed that just over the phone, I think. No, probably the day before, we were just sitting there and we choreographed it. We talked about what it would be. And so when I went in the next day with Patrick, I said, here's what we're going to do. If that's okay. And he was like, no, I'll just roll the cameras. You guys do your thing. So we did like a 7-minute fuck scene, which is just, it is everything that we have all done and done wrong and done right in a sex scene, all rolled into one big long movement. And so when Patrick went to the MPAA, he presented that long scene. And so you can imagine what these old folks at the MPAA, that's all they saw. The entire movie, all they saw was this long scene. And they were like, no. They didn't focus on any of the blood. They didn't say anything about any of the other stuff. It was just that. And so Patrick had already cut that scene down. Like, he knew when he went to the MPAA, it was going to be this other scene that is in the movie currently. He already had it. And so that was already there. He just did that so that they would not focus on the blood. Because for whatever reason, certainly in America.
Yes.
I
don't understand
it. And it's unbalanced. And it's unbalanced because boobs are okay, but yet,
I don't understand. Yeah, right. I don't understand it. And I know I can't just say North America, but even in the United Kingdom, the films are very conservative when it comes to blood, guts, and gore and nakedness, where international films, holy cow. Yeah. Okay, so for example, an Icelandic horror movie that I just watched, came out in 2019. It's called Thirst. And it is It is a gay vampire film. I fucking loved every minute of it. There was dick flying everywhere. I have never seen so much violence towards a dick before, but it was great. And again, it's an international film. It's not a film made in North America, because I find that they're very conservative, very like, oh, we can't put that in there. God forbid we put a flying dick through the air in the film. But Thirst, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I
was trying to think where it all started. I think Game of Thrones probably has started making it more acceptable. I believe it was Game of Thrones. Somebody have to correct me if that's not right. But there was dick in Game of Thrones.
True Blood.
And I know,
but there was. I don't remember being any dick in True Blood. Asses, yes.
No, I don't remember in True Blood. Certainly, there's no nudity in Vikings, but there's a moment where a dick gets cut off, and I remember I walked around the kitchen kind of in pain for a while because I don't like dick violence either. But who does?
I don't think anybody does, but it's great to see sometimes.
And there's a severed dick in Piranha.
Yes.
Herman Munster's dick floats to the bottom of the ocean, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I never quite understood just nudity in general. I never understood why it's okay for us to have guns which kill people, but it's not okay for us to have two people making love in certain aspects of our. And you would think that's the most natural thing, but
you would think so. And I blamed the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and 60s horror movies on that, because it was taboo to see a husband and wife in a bed, dressed in a bed. I remember I was reading some stuff on the Munsters, and there was a part where Lily Munster was in her bed. There was no sex, there was no nudity. They were fully dressed, and they had an issue with that. They had to actually cut a couple of scenes out of the TV show because they weren't allowed to show Lily Munster in the bed. And she was dressed. There was no nudity with Herman and Lily. They were just sitting in bed and having a conversation. He was in his nightcap. But that was a big taboo back then. I blame that for, the 30s for being so conservative. And I understand back then, different era, different time. But unfortunately, that kept and took on through as the evolution of horror happened. Yeah.
Well, I certainly think that Game of Thrones, if you watched Game of Thrones, by the end of it, you're used to it. And I think the problem is that certainly in America, you're not used to it. And so, and it just takes some time. But, we're never going to not, like even with Jason X, I didn't write in nudity and I had to add it later. It's never going to go away. So if that's the case, then it should be equal. Men should have to go in there and feel what I felt that day, which is, it's embarrassing. It's not like, people would come up, did y'all really do it? No, we didn't really do it because there's 17 union workers and truck teamsters standing around. There was a boot 3 inches from my head when we shot that scene. Some guy just relaxed over there. Look at this. So no, it's not. If we're going to make women go through that, we need to make men go through it too. So
I agree. I'm all for the equal opportunity nudity scenes. I especially, everyone wants equality and everything, right? Well, if we want equality, I want to see more nudity on equal on both sides, because women in any film have always been either breasts are showing or ass is showing or body is showing with how their camera kind of angles out their pubic area. So I don't know. It should be equal, and then that's where I was loving Cherokee Creek for that one, because it was male humor, and it got a lot of hate because of the male humor. But I love male humor. I think it's hilarious. I can laugh at anything as long as it's funny, and there's a lot of male humor in it, so that when it came time for certain scenes, Todd Jenkins was that was all him in scene. The only part that was fake was the I'm gonna give you a spoiler, is the part where his dick is bit off. That's the only scene that is that's not his dick. The rest of it was. I was rolling. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that hurts me deeply.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I even went, and I don't have one. So seeing that, and same thing in Thirst, was hilarious. Reaper, go ahead.
Times are slowly changing.
Slowly. They are slowly. And I think it's because a lot of the independent films, again, Thirst is an independent international film. Cherokee Creek And I think it's because they don't have the big money behind them saying, no, you can't have that dick scene in there. Because I think if a big publishing company was behind it, I think that would have been gone. The creativity of that would have been gone. Because again, there's something taboo about a man's dick being on screen.
Apparently, Monkey only wants to see nude men.
Yes, Monkey loves nude men.
You're missing out, buddy. I am as straight as it gets, despite the fact that I paint my toenails. But and that's why I fully believe that it's not fair. There should be more male nudity, and it's not right. And it's time that changes. I
agree. Time that it does change. Reaper, did you ever think that you'd be talking about so much dick talk?
No, I'm always prepared to talk about dick. It is a big part of my life. I know a lot about them because I have some experience with them.
Right? Oh, my show always ends up turning towards dick talk in horror films.
So this isn't unique for you.
This is just a normal everyday thing that goes on around here. Reaper 1923 wants to know, if there was an actor not living you could meet, who would it be?
Oh, so many. Oh my goodness. There's so many actors that when I was starting out I wanted to work with that now I can't because they're no longer here.
Right.
Max von Sydow, from Exorcist.
Yes.
We even worked on, we were going to do a Exorcist reboot, which would be a sequel later, where we bring him in, as the old man that he, older than he was in the original, obviously. But, we just couldn't make it. The Thing came out and The Thing didn't do well, and that was the same studio. And so it was a mess. And so it didn't happen. But there's, now I'm drawing a blank. JT, what is his name? He's been on a gazillion movies. I'm going to do a quick JT, not Simmons. I can't remember the name. Anyway, there's an actor who is fantastic, and there's always actors that come into my, and they're not big actors. They tend to be like it's like Bill Fichtner. I mean, people don't know Bill Fichtner's. A lot of people don't know Bill Fichtner's name. He played the accountant, and when you see his face, you're like, oh, that guy. Yeah. There's people like that have been paying their dues for ages. And even Bill said, he was like, I'm never offered a role like this, because he played the main villain. I mean, it's such a lovely, if I don't mind saying so myself, such a lovely written main villain. And he's one of those guys that comes in and just takes it to the next level and makes you look like a better writer. And so, but yeah, there's lots of actors that I would.
Yeah. Okay, so some people are saying the stream froze. Okay, it didn't freeze for me, guys. It was fine on my end, but just refresh if it has.
I look frozen. Or I did look frozen.
Okay, that unfortunately is Twitch, and that's a problem with live stream. Anything can friggin' happen.
But now I'm bouncing, so
yes,
I'm okay.
Okay, so you're good. And it didn't freeze by you, Riggs? Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the issues. Monkey wants to know, I was wondering if, as a writer, have you ever written a line trying to get an actor to break character or laugh?
No, I've done it, but I never did it on purpose.
Right.
I mean, I don't remember any off the top of my head, but I mean, when you're filming, you tend to break character all the time and crack up over the stupidest things. The one thing that comes to mind is either horribly erotic or horribly embarrassing to many listeners. But during the sex scene, because let's get back to some dick.
Sure,
during the sex scene in My Bloody Valentine, I had been conscious of my weight, so I started doing a lot of running and a lot of Bikram yoga. Bikram yoga is when you do yoga in a room that's 110 degrees.
Yeah.
And so my body, because I was doing that, had become trained to, when I would exert myself, I would flop sweat. So we're having this sex scene, and I'm on top, and I'm just and Betsy was not the kind of person who appreciated bodily fluids, and so I was dripping all over her, and so we broke character a couple of times.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's got to be awkward for both parties involved doing those kinds of scenes.
It is.
It's
right? Not.
I can't.
I mean, she was great. We were both very aware of each other's respect and bodies and that sort of thing. So she was wearing there's a thing that you wear. She was wearing that. I had a pantyhose on my penis. I mean, it was not as erotic as it might seem.
Oh, okay.
So
they have things for your bodies when you guys do sex scenes.
Yeah, you cover up. She at one point, I don't know if I should tell. At one point, she went. We shot that scene a long time. We shot this main big long scene, and then we shot a bunch of little stuff. And so we did this all day long. And so at some point, they would say cut, and they come up with a robe and you put it on. At some point, Betsy and I were so comfortable that we were just going out to get our coffee naked. And it was just, we would have people coming up going, would you please put your robe on? Oh, okay, sure. And, but it's at some point she went to the bathroom and she came back and she said, I ain't putting this back on. I was like, you do what you got to do, kiddo.
Right.
But at that point, you're just so comfortable with each other that you modesty sock. That is, I believe that is what someone referred to it as. So yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
But it was just a pantyhose.
Yeah, I mean, I know the pubic wigs are called merkins. By the way, have you ever heard of a parody Street boy group called the Merkins?
No.
Oh my lord, you need to check them out.
Write that down. The Merkins.
The Merkins. Okay, they are a parody group that dress up. They're called the Street Boys, and they dress up as iconic slashers, and they do boy band songs, but horror related. They are awesome. They are hilarious. Definitely check them out in your spare time.
I will definitely check them out.
Because I think you'll get a kick.
Just lovely.
They are. They're great. They're on YouTube. So they just came out with, they're actually creating a song called Slice Slice Baby. And nice. Yes, they just dropped a Mama Said Chop You Up. LL Cool J's Mama's Gonna Knock You Out. Mama Said Knock You Out. They made their parody version of Jason in the ring with boxing gloves singing Mama Gonna Chop You Up. It's a great parody. It's great.
That's lovely.
Oh, yeah. Check it out. Definitely check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Mr. Scott wants to know, in the upcoming Todd Farmer biopic, who would you want to play himself? Would you play yourself, or would you have someone play you?
Oh, no, it'd be more fun for somebody else to play me.
Yeah.
Not Stone Cold. I saw who said that earlier. I have signed so many autographs. I lived in Koreatown, and people would, when I was first getting started, people would come up thinking I was legitimately Stone Cold. And after a while, I just said, screw it. And I just started signing his name. So there are a bunch of fake autographs out there for Stone Cold that were actually me signing them. So.
Yeah. Mama Ducky said that you resemble Stone Cold.
Yeah, I saw somebody say that earlier, and I was like, yes, I get that sometimes. But I don't know who I would want to play. Now there are casting people that can figure that out.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's someone horrible that would do me justice.
That's a great question, Scott. That was an awesome question. Yeah, Mama Ducky was the one who said that you resemble, or Stone Cold resembles you. Which, yeah, I can see that. There was
when I was I guess I was still at Cunningham's, we had this TV pitch. We were going to the guys who did Baywatch, and we were at Lionsgate. We were moving forward, and we went in and met with Steve Austin, and he was going to play the lead. And it was basically about a detective who has a run-in with a werewolf, but the werewolf doesn't bite him. But they fall off this building and they land on the spiked fence, and so their blood gets mixed. And so Stone Cold ends up with sort of the abilities of a werewolf without actually making the full change. And he's a detective, and we called it Full Moon Dick because we like to keep the theme of Dick going in our little talks. And so I was going to play his little brother, even though I'm not that much younger than he is. That
would have went over well, though. You guys resemble.
Yeah. So, but then he ended up. Vince ended up making him an offer. He said, making him an offer he couldn't refuse. And so he left the show and went back to wrestling, and the show never went forward. We did meet with Goldberg later, but it just wasn't the same.
Right. Yeah, no, not the same. Reaper has another question. Is there a special process or something you do when writing examples, some writers have a favorite pen, or they use a typewriter, or have certain conditions for their writing. Do you have anything like that?
I don't have any of that. I can write wherever, whenever I need.
Oh, that's nice.
Part of it. My wife is in production, and she travels the world, and so she had a show in Dubai about a year, well, right before the pandemic, and so I wrote one of my movies while I was sitting in a hotel room in Dubai, because writers write. We write wherever we are. We don't. If you're sleeping in your car, sometimes you have to write in your car, and so get out of sleeping in your car. So that's just a part of it. So no, I don't. Although right now I write in this fancy tool shed,
right?
Because I can stand up, and my daughter's in my office. So
there you go. What got you into writing? Like, when did you start writing? Was this something that you've always done as a child growing up, or just as an adult?
I was the kid around the campfire that told the ghost stories. I didn't write. My grammar and spelling, my spelling especially, is atrocious. But fortunately, nowadays, a big red word will pop, a big red X will pop up, or cross, and I'll just change it, and I move forward that way. But I guess I started writing legitimately. I was living in Texas. No, it was before that. I visited a friend in Georgia, and the movie Major Payne, there was a poster for it. Mm-hmm. And the guy that I was visiting in Georgia, he had gone to school with Dean Lorey, who had previously written Jason Goes to Hell. And I ended up talking to Dean Lorey, and Dean Lorey said, "Hey, come out and do this thing." And so I started trying to figure it out.
Interesting.
So I could tell stories, and Dean kind of helped me learn how to write. So
that's awesome.
Where I started.
Nice. Lament Butterfly has a question. Do you ever experience bad writer's block? And if so, do you have any techniques for getting through it?
I hate saying this, but no, I've never had it. But I have heard that the best technique for getting through it is research. If you're whatever story you're telling, do research, and you'll find your inspiration that way. I know that research certainly sometimes I find it very boring, but it can be inspiring. I also think Disneyland is very inspiring, because you just go sit on a bench and watch people, and you'll pick up some amazing stuff. Yeah. But you can do that you can do that anywhere. But I've always heard research, but I've never had never had it. I've always just, I noticed that a lot of the writing isn't done at the computer. A lot of the writing is done when I'm doing other things. Like in my head is thinking of things. Right. I'll be in the shower and I'll think of things. I'm making coffee, I'll think of something. I tend to get up in the middle of the night and jot stuff down, because I didn't for a long time, and then I'd wake up and I would be like, shit, I can't remember the thing I was thinking of. And so now I just do it as a, I don't know, maybe because I'm old. But I've never had writer's block. I've had writer's lazy, which is I don't want to go write, and I want to do something else instead. And a lot of times for me, it's like a pressure cooker. The story will keep germinating and keep festering until I have to write it down. And then when I write, I tend to marathon write. I'll write, I'll sleep, I'll get up and write some more. Yeah.
Interesting. I love doing research as well, Lament Butterfly. I enjoy doing research. That's just some sick thing that I do. When I'm not interviewing in Coffee Chat of Horrors, I am autopsying movies. So I go, and horror movies mainly, and sci-fi. Yeah. So I go through and I find interviews, and I fact check those, and I go behind the scenes in the films, and I try to dive in and find stuff about the film that people won't regularly know. And they get to learn a little bit about how the film was made, or the makeup, or how the director thought of it. So I do love doing research. Not everyone does like it. And I do agree that sometimes if you do get stuck, research is the best thing for you to do. Yeah. Mr. Scott says, several of the writers I've talked to use music in the background to either inspire or ground them as they write. Are there any bands you like to listen to while writing?
I listen to soundtracks, a ton of soundtracks. I listen to old, I can't listen to stuff with words, because if I listen to stuff with words, I'll end up singing, and that will I distract myself. So I have several playlists that I use. I used to need, not need, I thought I used to need the playlist to match what I was writing. That's not the case. I can write to Tron. I can write to, I can write to Carpenter. I can write to, whatever, as long as there's no words.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when you're writing and you're thinking, and then all of a sudden you're singing a song, it kind of would distract you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess there have been some scary things that I've been working on that maybe I would want, the Tron soundtrack to pop in. But for the most part, as long as I will have music in the background almost always.
Right. I know on the set of, and I believe it was Planet Terror, Robert Rodriguez had Carpenter's music playing in the background to help give him inspiration on set. That I remember reading that. And Nikki Anderson, yeah. I'm speaking with Todd Farmer. He is a writer and an actor. Jason X wrote Jason X and acted as Dallas in the film, as well as My Bloody Valentine, remake 3D, as Frank the Trucker. And also he was the actor in Drive Angry and writer of Messengers. So you may that might jog your memory right there. So I didn't want you to have to go Google. I'll just figure I'd tell you who he is. Yes, that's his face. If you've seen Jason X, and there's a part where they're in the a VR scene, and Jason comes in after he slices the arm off of the dinosaur alien creature. He comes in and then uses the machete and chops off his head. That's the head.
It's even bloody.
That's awesome.
Kind of.
Probably a little smelly of chemical, whatever they have on it.
It used to have a strong smell. Now it's just there.
Oh, because out of the glass, hey?
Yeah. Now it's just in my lungs.
It is very cool, Nikki. I'd love to have a head of my own. Especially in a horror film. I would like to die in a horror film. I don't have to act in it. I would just like to die in a horror film. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I mean, I gotta think we know people who can arrange that.
Right? I think so.
You would think.
I would think, yeah. Mm-hmm. Regal wants to know, would you want to ever write a book or a biography on the experiences you've had in all the movies you write for? Is that something that would interest you?
I have actually thought about it. I did. I know we've joked about sleeping in the car, but I actually did sleep in the car for about a year because things got rough. Mm-hmm. And I remember having somebody come up to me saying, well, you just did that for the Free Press and for the... Well, no, I wrote this article about it, and somebody had suggested you just did that for the Free Press or so you could write a book, and that's not the case. I did it because I realized that this is a very difficult business sometimes, and a lot of writers, they're not making $1 million for their screenplays. They're making enough to survive for a period of time, and then that money runs out while they're trying to find another job. And so I felt like I wasn't alone, and I wasn't. I got thousands of emails and messages afterwards from people, some who were way more successful than I, who lost everything. And so, but in the more recent years, I have thought that maybe I could write something just to, help others, so that they don't make the mistakes I made. And maybe one day do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, people in the industry, even in the circuit for the cons and everything like that, horror cons and expos, I know a lot of people that sleep in their cars just going to each of the cons to make a name for themselves, just getting into the industry and talking about cons. That's where I first met 2004. 2004 is where I met Kane Hodder for the first time. He was in New Jersey doing the Chiller Con there. And he's definitely, I think, one of the biggest people to keep Jason alive outside of the movie circuit, like right out, not making films, but, staying into the circuit, going to the Comic Cons, going to the horror cons. I've met him numerous times because of horror cons. Have you ever been to one as an actor yourself or as a writer, or have you just gone to one just as an average person?
Yeah, I've been to several. I started out with Comic Con, in San Diego, and then I've done a couple of cons over the years. LA has a con that I've done a couple of times. What I found, I would often do the cons with Derek Mears and Tyler Main. Scout was there a few times. there's been a bunch of, Tom Atkins was there a couple of times. I mean, what I found was, since I didn't play the guy behind the mask, they had lines stretched around the corner, and it was just, me standing between them. And, I remember they were both like, "Hey, this is Todd Farmer. He wrote this. You should get his autograph." And people would be like, "Oh." We're just fine. The writers don't get a lot of love in this world. And the little guy who gets killed or gets his head cut off normally doesn't either. So I'm okay with that. But I love the cons. And I love the cons because, again, it's like I said earlier, horror movies are everything. It's all genres. And horror fans are the same way. So, I mean, you get people in, I don't know, churchy kind of people. They're scared of horror people because we look different, we think different. But the truth is, nobody is more accepting than I have found than horror people. Horror fans seem to be the most accepting of, if you like dramas or comedies or whatever, most horror fans aren't going to condemn you for that. No. Whatever religion you are, whatever, whoever you love, Fango has, everybody, every horror site, they're very accepting of everyone. So that's what I've always found. And that's how I've always been.
Yeah, no, horror has a great community. They are accepting. And you'll find that at other places we get I have people that come into my stream and tell me that I'm evil and going to hell because I like to show off my collection behind me of horror and what do they call it? I sensationalize violence or violence against women because of Final Girls and all that. And I'm just like, no, horror movies have always showed how empowering women are. They've always had a final girl, and the final girl is a strong female. She, in certain films, she starts out as a weak, girl next door. Other times, she's like Sigourney Weaver in Alien. But horror movies have always empowered women. Always.
Oh, absolutely.
From the stand of time, going back, you always had a female lead and always empowering. And I think it's been like that more for horror than it has any other genre. Besides romantic comedies and romantic films and shit like that. But horror has been like the first and foremost of empowering females and being accepting of everything. And you have queer horror, you have, straight horror, you've got a whole bunch of everything. It's been accepting of the entire community.
Yeah. And I think, and horror understands that. It's people outside of horror who sometimes don't understand. Like, I had somebody come to me because they were like, well, you read abusive men. Or no, he said, I condoned the abuse of women. And I was like, have you seen what happens to the men that I write who abuse women?
Yeah.
They do not meet a happy ending. There's a reason for that. So, I don't know. Not everybody gets it, but not everybody is supposed to get it.
Yeah. Hey, to each their own. I mean, if they don't understand it, they don't understand it. Nikki Anderson wants to know, what horror movie made you scared?
First one that scared the crap out of me that memory serves was probably Jaws.
That is my scary. Yeah.
It was the one that got me the most. Halloween scared the crap out of me because it felt so real to me. Like it could be anybody. It could be the person across the street. I enjoyed the Friday the 13th movies, but they felt more fun to me.
Yes.
They felt less like I grew up, hanging out in the woods, and I never felt like somebody was going to come around with a hatchet. But I get into the ocean, and I'm like, I'm gonna get eaten by a shark.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But when Freddy came onto the scene, he's walking down the alley with his arms outstretched. I mean, could there have been anything more scary than that at the time? Growing up in a Christian environment, Omen and Exorcist, all of those God movies terrified me.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up Catholic. I grew up in a very, conservative, tiny Christian environment, but still those movies had an impact. And I mean, those are the ones off the top of my head, but that's because, I'm old as dirt. But those are, and today there's tons of, like, I didn't really get into torture porn. I didn't want to write those kind of movies, even though I ended up pitching I was one of probably the earliest people to pitch. What was Eli's first big movie? Having a brain fart.
Eli Roth?
Yeah, his first.
Hostel. There was
Yes.
Hostel. Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked on that early. Completely different. It was very religious overtones. It was nothing like what he came up with.
Right.
But and then I ended up writing this thing called Medieval because the only jobs available were torture porn.
Yeah.
But I never really loved that world. But
that came into effect.
Everything else I did.
With Saw, right? I mean, the first one I can remember would have been Cannibal Holocaust, because I do know that Eli Roth created his version of Cannibal Holocaust called Green Inferno, right?
Yeah.
And Hostel, I really liked Hostel. I liked the Hostel franchise, but Saw really brought that in for that genre.
Yeah. Saw certainly was. Saw was first, right? Yeah, Saw was first.
Yeah, 2004, I believe Saw first came out in 2004.
But Saw never struck me as just doing the gore for the sake of gore. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
There was a rhyme behind that reason. There was a methodology and a religion, so to speak, which I always appreciated. And I love the new Saw. So I think Darren knocked it out of the park. And that's the first movie that I saw in theater again. So my return to movie theaters was Spiral. So
I haven't seen Spiral yet. Our movie theaters just opened up on the 10th of June. So we've been in major lockdown here in Canada.
Yeah.
So our movie theater just opened up, and I don't know if they're playing Spiral. I'll have to look. I think we missed out on that one because I know they weren't doing they weren't doing a VOD release. They were only doing theatrical release. Yeah,
the California's been I think we're 70% vaccinated at this point, so things have slowly opened back up. But I mean, people are still wearing masks when they go out for the most part, except for the idiots. But I mean, it's all. I like that things are finally kicking back up, and we're about to be able to go to movies again. I'm ready.
Yeah. Oh, I'm ready to go back to friggin' normal.
Yeah. I'm going to be.
No, go ahead.
I always go ahead. You go ahead this time.
I was just going to say, I'm done with being in lockdown. We've been in lockdown for over a year and a half.
I know. There's no more home improvement for me to do. I have to get out of the house now. I don't want to put a second level on the house. It's just too much work. I don't want to.
Yeah. And you only have so much land to put a garden on.
I know. I've done so much work. I've built a gazebo. I built a table. You can't see it from here, but there's a table with a fire pit in it that I built. I mean, all of this stuff just because I was bored.
Well, yeah, there's nothing else you can do, right? So might as well get creative with your house.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did a lot of creative projects around here as well. In the wintertime here, it's too cold to really go outside. If we get like minus 40 Celsius, again, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, or even if it exchanges over into Fahrenheit, but we get super cold here. And so inside home projects are always good.
So you must be way up there then, because I remember it getting cold in Toronto, but I've got some friends in, I always say this wrong, Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan, yeah.
And so they're way up. I mean, Tyler Maine is from there. And so I went back with him, and they... you got to break open the ice to go fishing. I mean, it's just... Yeah,
you do. Ice fishing.
They're a bit nuts up there.
We are. Yes, we are. We do like our ice fishing. We do our polar bear runs as well. I'm in Alberta, which is right next to Saskatchewan. We're more on the west coast side because we're in between Saskatchewan and British Columbia. British Columbia being the west coast. So we're right there. But yes, we get as cold as Saskatchewan and tons of snow.
Well, they were in Saskatoon, is that right?
Yeah, Saskatoon.
Okay, I said it right. Okay, so
yeah, you did.
Anyway, look at me. I'm practically Canadian.
There you go, honorary Canadian.
Because I can say two words, and I do know where Alberta is. So I got that.
Nikki has a question for you. Were you ever scared on set or behind the scenes by seeing some of the characters?
No. I don't think so. I mean, Kane can be scary just because he's so crazy. Like he screams a lot right before we shoot. No, I don't think so on set. I mean, it's, like my kid, this used to be on the mantle in the house. So my daughter is 14 she's not really scared of stuff like this because she grew up with a severed head in her room.
Yeah.
But she ended up sleeping in my office. So I mean, it's and I think she's the same way. And I was going to say, I probably say this wrong. IROC, and there was a lot of other stuff. You said earlier, you mentioned starving artists, and I was going to comment on that, and now I can't remember why you said. Oh, I know why you said it. You were saying that a lot of people. You said one of your friends said a lot of writers did their best work when they were in starving artist mode, and that is absolutely correct. And it's funny because if you look at, and we won't name names, but if you look at the careers of some of the guys who made some great stuff, you could make the argument that the reason that some of their newer stuff is not perhaps as good is that they're not starving anymore. They have, they're more comfortable. And I think that does, and I don't think anybody would ever trade that. Oh, I would love to be starving again so I could make better content. You make the best content you can based on your surroundings, but it could be argued that when you're not starving, you don't make as good content for some people.
And that could be the reason.
Yeah.
Because when you're a starving artist, you're sitting there trying to think of the next best thing to come out to give you money, and the pressure is on. So you have that when you already have all the surroundings and all the things around you. You're not really, I wouldn't say that you're not really, but some people in that aspect get a little lazy because they already got everything they want. Yeah. So they don't have to make something that's the greatest to help get them to eat supper the next day.
Yeah. And I think the way around that is that you have people who are genuinely passionate about the work and about the genre. And so that kind of overcomes that. But thankfully I'm not rich, so I don't have to worry about either one.
We are getting into the last 10 minutes of our show. If you guys have any other questions, please get them in. And it's Mr. Scott has one. What is your opinion on the zombie genre? Do you feel it's run its course, or is there another aspect of the subgenre that is yet to be explored?
I mean, I don't think it's run its course. I think it's just like anything else. I still like. I don't think James Bond has run its course. Yeah. So I think there's always room for a zombie movie that's got a new twist or a different take on it, just like there's always room for another slasher movie.
Yes.
And so no, I don't think it's run its course. And I love the zombie genre going all the way back before they were even called zombies. So I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan. I've never done anything in the zombie genre. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't think I've never even pitched in the zombie world. I remember having an idea for like the very first zombie and following that story of the very first person who was ever, and I think they've probably done that by now. This is probably 10 years ago, but I never wrote anything down. It was just an idea. But no, I love the zombie genre. So do I.
It's one of my favorites. Frankenstein's monster comes from the zombie genre because he's put together by dead bodies and reanimated by electric, right? Frankenstein's monster is my favorite friggin' monster out of the classic monsters. And my name, ReAnimateHer, comes from the film ReAnimateHer, 1985, starring Jeffrey Combs as Dr. Herbert West, because I'm a H.P. Lovecraft fan. But the zombie genre is great. And outside of North America, there is lots of zombie films being made. Korea, not Vietnam. There's another place that started creating. China is also in there now creating zombie films. If you guys haven't seen those, definitely check them out. Hi, Zombie Punk. Oh, Nikki Anderson wants to know, do you want your daughter to follow into your footsteps, or is it something that you hope she follows, or you just?
I mean, she does art. She draws and she does digital art. She does animations, and she's already. I mean, her stuff is dark. It's dark enough that people on Facebook will text me and go, "What movies are you showing her?" She really doesn't watch. She's seen my movies, but she doesn't watch movies at all. Really, she just doesn't like it. She'd rather chat with her friends or do some sort of animation online, and so she's not. I'm not against her following in the footsteps. I don't think she will. I think she'll do something completely unique that has nothing to do with me, but it will be dark, whatever it is.
Awesome.
Her tastes run dark.
My spawn is the same way. She grew up in a horror household. She's 17. I have been a horror fan all my life. And so this collection behind me is just a small portion of my collection. I've been collecting for over 20 years. So she was raised among this. And so she's really good artist. She does a lot of drawings and paintings. And now she's heading into more of the anime side of things. But yeah, she has some dark little drawings that she does. And I think it brings something to them when they grow up in the horror genre, in a family that's in horror. I think that brings something to them that others kind of miss out on that didn't grow up with that.
I think there's certainly an acceptance of all people, all genres, because we tend to love everything. So I mean, I think that's a part of it. But her stuff is deeper than my stuff. I come across as really unintelligent compared to her when I look at her stuff. Like, do you remember when we were in school and the literature teacher you'd have to read something and I would read it and it would be like some guy jumps into a pool of water and then he gets out and he puts his clothes on. For me, it's just like a Tuesday. Right. But then the literature teacher comes back and goes, well, his jumping in the water actually means this, and it refers to his childhood and how his mom spanked him and all of these different things. And my daughter does that stuff. Like, she'll play me one of her animations and I'm like, that was great. And then she'll start telling me all the backstory and all the crap that I didn't notice. And that's I'm awesome. I'm like, she's so much smarter than me and I feel so stupid. But it's fine.
Does your daughter have a fan page? Does she have a page, not a personal page, but like a fan page where people can come and see her work? Because I would love to maybe get her a couple people that want to see her work around here, because I'm very interested.
She does. She is Izzy Rain. Izzie Rain, and everything I think is Izzy Rain. I'm pretty sure.
Right there in chat, IZZIE and Rain, like in regular rain.
Yes.
Perfect. And is that on Instagram and Facebook, or just Facebook?
That's Instagram and Twitter. She's thinking about leaving. She's thinking about, and let me look. I actually didn't look at. Where are you?
Right in chat. I can.
Yeah. That's it. She's on Instagram and she kind of uses Twitter, but she's mostly Instagram.
Twitter's a cesspool. So good for her for Instagram.
She's got Facebook, but she's thinking about getting rid of it because she feels like it is of the devil.
It is the devil. I agree with her. She's very smart. Very smart. Great. I definitely want to check that out. Izzy Rain on Instagram, guys. Give that a check out. That is Todd Farmer's daughter. She is creating some dark awesomeness. Definitely check her out. We are getting to be that time, but I do have one last question for you from Lament Butterfly. Through the process, do you think that Jason could return for a sequel to Jason X? Would it be pure metaphysics or related to DNA melted into the mask or something else? Because as we've seen in Jason X, at the end of the scene, we have the guy, I can't remember his name, but he grabs onto Jason as he swoops over, grabs them. They all come down into flames when they hit the atmosphere and they drop into the lake. And then you see the two lovers at the one side of the lake saying, hey, that landed in the lake. Do you see anything coming from that?
I do. I think if you go that route, I think it does come from either the mask or it comes from debris that's floating in the atmosphere from the ship that blew up, because he was rebuilt up there, and we would assume that our technologies, not everything would have burned up when it exploded. There would be debris, and from that debris you would find DNA and stuff like that.
Well, and also when they hit, you got to remember that nanotechnology that created the beast, or more of a beast, Jason. Him landing on the planet like that, even if he was to burn up, we've seen Jason blown the hell up and he's come back, right? Mm-hmm. So I could definitely see something hanging out, which would then start the Earth 2. I would love to see Jason X versus Jason. That would be a really cool fight scene. Maybe Jason, I don't know how it would happen. I don't know how Jason would go back in time, like a Back in the Future type of Jason, but that would be a really cool battle.
I mean, that was certainly the intention. At the end of the second movie, it was to send him back to, I don't remember what date I chose, but it was after he was an adult. So send him back to that time. And so you would have Uber Jason versus, burlap sack and or hockey mask Jason.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. No, that would be really cool. I think a character expansion, maybe not going into backstory 100% is really good, but I would like to see some of the characters, like Crazy Ralph. I'd love to see how Crazy Ralph became Crazy
I know,
Ralph.
that would
I'd
be
love
fun.
to see, does Camp Crystal
Yeah.
Lake have a curse on it from way back in the day, and Crazy Ralph maybe witnessed it or something like
Yeah.
that, because I like to see some of the exploration for characters in some of the Friday the 13th films, actually in other films as well.
Yeah, I would like that. I think that would be fun. And I know there was talk for a TV show, but I
Yeah.
think it could have explored those things, but I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see. I'm hoping that the lawsuit between Cunningham and Miller end shortly. I would hope so, because I think the fans are not wanting. I think they need another Jason film.
Yeah.
Really do.
And even the sad thing is, even before that, it is a wonky rights situation.
Yes.
That's hard to unravel, sometimes even for my brain. And I kind of know there's a lot of players in making a Jason movie, and all of those players get paid before the movie gets made. So it's difficult sometimes to figure out how you're going to make a movie based on the money that's left.
Yeah.
And I say that, and then you've got fans out there making movies for nothing. So.
Yeah. There is, like I said, there's a couple of films that I back currently that are made by fans with very low budgets, very, very low budgets of $5,000 is some of them $10,000. And that's not a hell of a lot of money to make a film with.
No, it isn't.
Camp Crystal Lake having a curse is explored in the comic book. Yes, I heard it's explored in the comic book. I would just like to see Crazy Ralph expanded as a character.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, hi Star, how are you? We are coming to that time. I don't want to keep up any more of your time. You've graced us with your presence for almost 3 hours, and I'm very grateful and thankful that you took the time out of your weekend to hang out with us.
And someone needs your attention.
Oh yes, this is Fusa. She always likes to come over here and hang out with us. I'm surprised she wasn't here earlier. But it's probably lunchtime, isn't it? It's lunchtime for you. Oh, thank you, Fusa. Thank you. But again, is there anything that you'd like to say before ending?
Keep watching horror and keep supporting people that are trying to get into the business, because it's tough sometimes.
It definitely is tough. There is Todd Farmer's information guys. Follow him on Instagram. Follow on Twitter. His daughter Izzy Rain on Instagram as well. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us on your Sunday.
It has been my pleasure.
I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will have this up on YouTube as well on a VOD if you ever wanted to watch it.
I'll watch you. I won't watch me.
I don't like watching myself either. I don't like hearing myself either in any of my videos.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, I sound like that?
I know. But I think
I sound awful country.
Yeah, but I think as creatives, we don't ever like to hear or see ourselves, because we always like, oh, what? I just did that?
I try only to watch myself naked personally, but it's just me.
We're petting Fusa for you, Joy Toy. Again, thank you so very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, Todd.
It has been my pleasure, and let's do it again sometime.
I would love to do it again. You have a great day.